Behöver du en bil? Mabi hyrbilar finns på över 150 platser i landet och vi har nästan lika många modeller att välja på. Mabi hyrbilar. Hyrbilar som passar dig.
Hos Bright Esports i Västerås kan du testa på både NASCAR och olika formulabilar, precis som Svenska Eracingligan deltagare. Gå in på brightesports.com och boka just din tid.
And after 3 months break, we return for more oval action. The Bohlin Swedish e-racing league returns for another season, season 6. That is, it was Jonas Gunnarsson last time out taking the championship crown. But let's see who can do it this time around. It's myself, Cameron Roger, Dane Baird alongside me in the commentary booth, and Joshua Lee on the production behind the scenes for this RaceSpotTV broadcast. And Dane, we cannot wait to get racing for a new season. Of course, all the oval action is going to be coming the way. All the NASCAR style racing is what we love to see, and it's certainly a nicer thing to come back for until we get the champion crowned in May next year.
Yep, it is a long old road ahead of not only us but the drivers as well, and it's good to see a European NASCAR series. We're no strangers to oval racing here on RaceSpotTV, but European series not so common, so it's always good to see that.
And to start the season, we are here at the Hårlinjen in Timrå 500, which is going to be the opening of the season. 125 laps, 500-kilometer race. But as you see, we have an extensive calendar, 15 races in the regular season before we have, of course, the playoffs to finish the season finally at Homestead, Miami, already in May next year. Whole host of sponsors coming on board, so a massive thank you to them. And of course, we'll get to those races and all the sponsors that come with that throughout the season. But as ever, the Bohlin's Svenska e-racing league, the 2023 and 24 schedule is underway. Daytona, of course, it's a super speedway, restrictor plate racing. It's going to be a lot about the draft, and even though, as ever with ovals, the track map looks very simple, Dane, the style of racing is so difficult. You've really got to be savvy with your aerodynamics.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely do. Pack racing is oftentimes people that have never tried it themselves don't really give it the time of day, but it is probably the most difficult style of racing. I would say it's the slightest mistake. You can be like 3 millimeters away from where you need to be, or 3 inches, I should say. It's NASCAR after all. You can be so slightly off your line, and all of a sudden, all of your power's gone. Someone's taking the side draft off you, and then you're getting left behind in the back of the pack. So it is very tricky racing to be good at and to get yourself to the front of these fields. And then you've also got the cautions, which just throw a whole spanner in the works every time we get them. And at plate tracks, obviously, they're more common.
Indeed, and we do have, as the drivers just come into the qualifying session, we do have a couple of stages, but we do not have the stage cautions, which is always an interesting factor. Here's the number 71 of Linus Broström, who of course is one of the main admins in this league, and he'll be going for that pole position. But as ever, Dane, qualifying is going to be so close, a few thousandths of a second is going to separate everyone up towards the front, so you do have to get your line absolutely perfect to get every single speed you can out of these cars.
You certainly do, and yeah, when you're flat out for the entirety of the lap, the line, it has to be pixel perfect for you to get those marks. And as you say, the gaps between the drivers, especially in this qualifying session, they are going to be minuscule. So we'll wait to see it now. Linus, he's taking the high line on this lap, so he's going to go for the second lap being his quick one, try and take the run off the banking down the hill onto the front straight.
Yeah, this is one thing that we were just mentioning. Of course, you have your 2 laps within the session, but as ever, your second lap is going to be faster as you gain that momentum coming out of pit road. You need to really jump up towards the front. Kenneth here leads the way at the moment on 49.40, but as ever, look how close the drivers are in behind. It's a thousandth of a second between them, but Peter Helmro goes to the front in the 77 machine by just about 3,000 or hundredths, I should say, of a second. It's going to be so close. Drivers are going to be jumping up to the top. It will be that final lap that counts as Fredriksson now goes to P2.
that he does, and the times all compiling in. There are 2,000ths of a second between our top three right now. That is ridiculous margins up there right in the thick of things, and only a couple hundredths back as well. But here start coming in some of the quicker guys. Our top two equal.
Absolutely awesome scenes there as your reigning champion Gunnarsson in that number one machine goes to the front as it stands. Omen up there into fourth place. Now Solo goes to the front by 1,000th of a second. Your top three just 1,000th between them.
Well, we promised you very small margins here in qualifying, and very small margins is what we got. We got 0.002 seconds, or 1 second even, between our top three drivers, and you only have to go back 3,000ths as well to fourth position, the 42 of Omen as well. So, wow, what a qualifying session we have. And with the drivers this close, the racing is going to be incredible.
Yeah, there's Omen there using the VR headset, which is a nice one to see actually. Not very common still these days. Always nice when you see a driver up there. And of course, as we get into the new season, everyone is going to be raring to go to try and get up towards the front. There is Linus for Bright Esports in the 71 machine. Lovely, colourful livery on that. You should be pretty happy with that one actually, 6th place. But as ever, Dave, we have 125 laps. Qualifying is not everything, but you certainly want to be at least in that top sort of 10-20 cars really at the front, or you want to be right at the back and just saving fuel.
Yeah, you've got a massive field of cars, but you also have a very long race. We're looking at 125 laps or so. So yeah, there's plenty of time to make your way up through the field, and getting past cars at plate tracks is definitely doable. It's not like some of the other circuits where you got to have a lot more skill, I would say, to get past. But yeah, it's going to be tricky for the drivers, especially those starting at the back.
So let's take you through the grid for today's Hårlinjen in Timrå 500 to start the season. Let's have a look. Daniel Solo on the front row of the grid with Gunnarsson just equaling his time there on the 2nd place, with Blixt in 3rd and Oman in 4th place. Salander and Brustum round out your top 6 on the grid. We've got Hafedarsen there in 7th place, Helmbro in 8th, Schott and Arlitzen in 10th place, Fredriksson and Sjöglund in 12th there on your front 6 rows of the grid. Of course, loads of drivers to get through. Tyr Hagman there, and Zachrisson in 15th place, Eriksson, Olsen and Lundberg in your top 9 rows there, if I could count. Bradberg and Fraggle in your top 20, with Gunnarsson and Stromberg inside your top 22. Broberg and Erling for your top 24. These drivers still just within 1/10 of a second, just showing you how equally matched these cars are on a track like this. Gantz and Trepp inside your top 26, with Fors and Nyholm in your top 28. The first driver just outside 1/10 is Bohlin, with Oman there, the number 2 machine in 30th place. In 31st is going to be Lindhoff and Eriksson inside your top 32, with Karlen and Broberg, the other Broberg, in 34th place. Bjork and Brostrom round out your top 36. Brostrom there, the father of Linus, who's up inside your top 6 for today's race. And here's the drivers just coming onto the pit road to go onto the formation lap. And Dane, how are you as a driver? You coming into a new season, always got a bit of nerves coming your way, and you got to now try and calm yourself down and get prepared for a long night of racing.
Yeah, a long night of racing, that is for sure. And yeah, Daytona, it's always one of those where it's a race of attrition. You have to survive the race first, and then you can start thinking about where you're actually finishing. Where you are exactly on track, as long as you're near to the front, it doesn't matter exactly which position that you're in, because anything can and anything does happen. So all about attrition for these drivers, keeping their cars in good shape towards the end of this race to kick their seasons off in a good way.
Yeah, you're very correct actually, keeping your car in a good shape, because sometimes it is about that. Here are your track conditions for today's race. We've got 70 Fahrenheit track temperatures, and of course we are starting at 5:52 p.m. so it's already pretty late in the day, and with a couple of hours of this race, we're definitely going to be into the night for the final of this race. So it's just going to be getting cooler and cooler. The track is going to be really grippy there at the end of the race day.
Yep, and of course, as the sun sets, the air density changes, and that affects how the draft works as well. So there's a whole lot that the drivers have to be keeping an eye on. But it is a long time until we have to worry about that. You can see the sun even starting to set maybe a little bit in the background of that shot down the back stretch, the super stretch here at Daytona. but as we pass the bus stop chicane, we start to get ready.
Yeah, we certainly do. Of course, the drivers will be trying to get themselves mentally prepared for what is going to go. It's always one of those interesting style races where you want to you want to get hyped up, you want to get that adrenaline going, but at the end of the day, you also want to keep it calm. Everyone's going to be bumper to bumper to bumper, many rows deep, and you just got to keep it calm. But as ever, as you get to the start of the season, people want to get the points on the board in the first races. 15 races in the regular season to get yourself into the playoff places. A lot of races to do so, and the consistency factor is going to be what gets you towards the front. As ever, it's not going to be easy to come out on top, but Gunnarsson is doing a good job there on that front row, trying to take back the crown that he won last year. It's certainly not going to be easy, but let's see what we do as we come to the start of the Bohlin Swedish e-Racing League, the 2023-24 season about to get underway, and we go green for the Hårlinjen and Timrå 500, and let's see how this one goes. The drivers get underway, and of course just slowly build up the speed. Looks like we're getting a bit of a breakaway then. They saw top half of the field, a bit of contact a bit further back between the two green and pink machines, as we're certainly starting to see that second row actually, sort of second part of the train in that outside line starting to form away. And of course you need to keep close, you need to be keeping yourself in a big pack, pushing each other forward, but it looks like everyone is still a green flag and keeping it calm.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the drivers from the outside lane switching to the inside on this opening lap, and that inside train doing quite well indeed. We shall see how that continues off of the banking as we finish this first of 125 laps in this race. It's still fairly even. Maybe the outside lines drop back one row. But my question now is, we've got these two rows, two lanes. They're doing really well. Do you think we're going to get 3 lanes in this race?
At some point potentially, but it never seems to work. It's just too many cars, and we are really getting a breakaway in this top half of the field. That is potentially something to keep an eye on, because once you lose that proper draft, it's so difficult to get back into it, and that's why you've got to be keeping on to it. But yeah, as you say, Dane, I don't think we're going to be seeing 3 lanes. It is a wide track around this Daytona International Speedway, but it doesn't seem like that is what we're going to be seeing. Pretty one line actually in that second half as they try and work their way up. We've got about 7-8 cars still trying to hold this outside line.
And they're doing it well. Gunnarsson up into the lead. It'll be interesting to see if he does get a full car length ahead. If he gets some space on the bottom, will he switch down and cut the nose off the 13 and take that inside line? Will we see what they do there? But they're definitely getting a good run on that outside line coming off the banking.
Yeah, they certainly are. I wonder at some point if we're going to try and see maybe one of the drivers from the outside line, they're going to try and bump ahead, and then when they do get ahead, try and drop down to that potentially superior inside line, especially if it remains grippy. The inside line should be better. It just depends how the pushing is on the outside. We're now losing a couple of drivers on the outside line as well. We're now down to 5 in that line, and of course so more drivers that you reduce, the more you lose that draft effect. You really want to be just pushing each other along in a nice hard move, as Gunnarsson there actually gets to the front momentarily before dropping back into turn 2.
Yeah, the outside line not quite getting the pushing going just yet, but as I've said, it's a long race. It's 125 laps. We do have stages, so we've got first 30 laps as stage 1, next 30 laps up to lap 60 is stage 2, and then stage 3 until the end. But we don't have stage cautions. So that's something that's going to be interesting to see how the drivers work around that. They should be able to last each stage, assuming we stay green. They won't have to pit for the first 2 stages. They'll pit probably just after stage 1, and then they won't have to pit for the rest of stage 2. But yeah, we'll see how the strategy evolves. They won't need to be making any risky moves at this point in the race, that's for sure.
And that is a very good point as well with the strategy, because what we've been told is the field goes roughly 31 to 35 laps, and with the stage being at lap 30, no one is going to want to pit before that stage, which means they are going to be in not necessarily a fuel save mode, but they're not going to be doing anything too crazy, of course, in these first couple of laps. Well, as ever, probably in the first half of this race, everyone's going to be trying to keep their car clean and certainly working well. Here's Canitier, who's up towards the front for initially in that qualifying session in the 49 machine. But of course, a little bit further down, currently in that 13th, 14th battle as it stands. He's on that low line. You see, just as the car behind their yellow car just closing up a little bit, and that is what you need to start pushing you forward. But as you see there, he gets a run out of the corner and pulls away again.
Top line on the front of this train of cars, dropping back slightly. They haven't been able to get a good run until now, that is. That's a pretty decent run on the outside, but still waiting for the overlap to be cleared, and we'll see what Jonas Gunnarsson decides to do. Do you stay up high? Do you go down low? But they're all running very cleanly for now, which is what we like to see. It's only been 6 laps, yes, but I've seen wrecks earlier in races like this.
Certainly have. It's easy to do so, especially if you just get that little bit more of overspeed and then you actually make contact with the car ahead. If you do so sort of unexpectedly, that can always cause a crash. But also, if you are making contact, you need to be hitting bumper to bumper. You can't be hitting corner to corner, otherwise you're going to be seeing a wreck. And the 42 there on that high line, as they start to lose a couple of car lengths coming out of turn 2. That's why it's really starting to get close. It is moving around a little bit. It needs to be careful, as we're starting to definitely see this low line pulling away, though the outside line now, they start to bunch up again, and hopefully that should give them a little bit of momentum, but they are slowing down this lap.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened there, because Gunnarsson got fully ahead of Sola. He was a full car length ahead. I thought he might switch down to the bottom lane, and then all of a sudden they dropped back, and now just about alongside with the driver in 4th on this inside line. So not entirely sure what happened through sort of this stretch between the tri-oval and turns 1 and 2. Something happened and they just lost a ton of speed on the outside lane.
Yeah, certainly a difficult position, because at some point, if there's a gap, are they going to move down? There isn't really a gap actually for any of these drivers. Maybe just about their 4th car back can get past, and maybe 77 Helmbro. But although again, as we get to that straightaway, everyone just closes back up as they use that slipstream before we get into the corners once more. And certainly it's not looking too bad, though. Actually, they've managed to stabilize that 3-car deficit that they've got. But certainly something that they need to think about, as we're now down to 6 cars, I think it is. 7 cars in that outside line, with that second group actually dropping quite far back on the background of the shot too.
Yeah, they'll be hoping for a caution to get themselves back up to the pack, because they're far enough behind now that I don't think it's going to be possible for them to catch that gap back up, especially not whilst these cars up at the front are still in a draft train and they're still pushing each other along. Outside lane is starting to close back up again, up into 3rd position overall now, so back up ahead of the 3rd car in line for Gunnarsson on the outside lane, and they've caught up about 1.5 tenths of a second over the last couple of laps to the leader, which is still Solo, who's been leading for the majority of these opening 9 laps. They come around to start lap number 10 now, and the sun starting to set a lot quicker than I was actually expecting. It's already starting to get visibly darker.
It certainly is. It's the time of day in Sim was about February time, so right in winter, obviously when this race is held in real life as well. But therefore, being winter, it's going to be getting dark very early in the day, and that's something that the drivers will definitely need to consider with the balance of their car and what they do with the balance and how they handle that over the course of the race. The outside line now is very much back intact and in line with the leader, who is still remains solo in that 13 machine as we come out of the final corner to finish lap number 10 here of 1:25, a third of the way through this opening stage.
Yeah, definitely starting to get their act together a little bit better than they have been on a few of the laps prior. We've lost another couple of cars from this lane, though. They are definitely starting to drop back down. We had 8 a few moments ago, back down to 7.
Yes, I do wonder just how you want to handle this race. Of course, everyone's very stable at this moment, but I do think if I was in that outside lane, I would be trying to get down if you see a gap. Of course, finding the gap and then also executing the move down there is certainly a couple of different things. But hopefully spotters and the like can find a gap for those drivers. So I think in the long run that'll be better for them. And as ever, when we get to the pit stops at the just after that first stage, when the drivers come out and everyone sort of regains a formation, it'll be interesting to see if some drivers use that opportunity as well to swap lanes, as once again the outside line starts to go back a little bit, but huge gaps in the low line. That's going to slow them down too.
I can't help but feel like the high line, they're too high. Does that make sense? I feel like they're not close enough. They're running it a bit too high up the racetrack, taking a bit too much distance. They're not getting any of the side draft benefits that you might want to be getting from the cars on your inside. I feel like they want to be getting a bit lower lower down on the racetrack, and this is much more like it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. A bit more of a mid-line should get that side draft included. And I think that actually worked a little bit coming through turn 4. They have a decent run out onto the front straightaway. Solo leads across the line once again and is doing a good job. But how is his fuel numbers looking? Is he going to have to go a little bit early? We've already got a car that's going to go a lap down, it looks like, running that high line. And unfortunately, that is Marcus Hagman in the number 12 machine. He's going to be dropping past, and he's now going to have to just hope for some cautions, get on the lead lap at a later point in the race.
And it might not look like it, but he is almost definitely at full throttle right now.
Oh, yeah.
The power of the draft is huge. He's doing a little bit of wall riding there. That's the fail melon. That's what that's called.
Yes, it's potentially not the thing to do on this track in particular. You definitely need every bit of speed. But yeah, he's absolutely flat out. The extra speed that you get from using the draft is ridiculous. Even the drivers at the front of this track, so at the pack, I should say, Gunnarsson and Solo in the left and right lane, they are being pushed. So aero pushed by the cars behind, and even they will be going faster than just a drive on a solo lap. It's pretty crazy the speed increase that you can get.
Look at this now. As the drivers, they're going 3 wide here. Linus up the middle.
Yeah, 3 wide in the 71 machine there. As we continue to go 3 wide, it slowed them down though. Gunnarsson comes back down to the middle to almost chop off the 42 there. 42 is hoping, please give me the slipstream. Linus is also doing the same. In the 71, as we come onto the front straightaway, Linus has got himself into a bit of an awkward position, but he's finally managed to get back in line. That could have very easily broken them up a little bit more. And it does look like I've had a couple more drivers drop down, and it's now down to 6 on this outside line.
Yeah, it is indeed. A couple drivers on the inside dropping back too. There was a couple of bigger gaps there, which does allow you to actually build up a little bit of extra speed, because oftentimes you're bumping into the cars in front of you, or you want to be lifting off when you're doing that. You don't really want to be going there full throttle at full speed, because you can damage the front of your own car, and that's not going to do anyone any favors. But when you get a bigger gap in front of your car, assuming you're on a train, you can get some push as well. You can actually gain some speed. I think that's exactly what Linus was trying to do there, and hop into that middle lane or into the outside lane and try and make a couple of passes. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out there. I'm really surprised that Gunnarsson didn't hop down to the bottom lane. He was fully in front, as was the driver behind. They were first and second on that outside lane, so had the opportunity to drop down to the middle, but into the bottom, sorry, didn't, and Solo regains the lead of the race.
And maybe just feels more comfortable being in that outside line for now. I mean, it is working pretty well, and naturally you are closer to the leader. Then obviously you take up more real estate when you're side by side in 2 lines. So maybe just trying to hold on to a nice calm position, though we are already over the halfway point in this first stage. The Hårlinjen Timrå 500, the first round of the season for the 2023-24 season. The Öhlins Swedish Racing League continues, of course. 125 laps, still quite a few to go, but the stage 1 is coming up very shortly, and at that point we'll see a load of drivers dropping down into pit road.
Starting to spread out a little bit here, the drivers. They're leaving bigger gaps, and this lead pack that we have, especially on the outside lane, only 5 cars strong, or 6 cars now.
I wonder who Marcus is talking to there. He looks very calm, looks to be having a pretty normal conversation there, down in 18th place, currently in the 64 machine, and just sitting towards the back of that train. There's no reason for him to do anything at this stage, just needs to be keeping on the train. A couple of gaps opening up ahead, but he should be pretty fine there. So he's part of Bright Esports as well, which of course is part of Linus's team. He's up there in P5, P6 as it stands, but he's still sitting there third on that outside row. Tried to make a move up to the front a few laps ago, but couldn't quite make it work. And actually looking at the front, Dane, something I hadn't quite appreciated, of course, it looks like we've got teammates there on the front of each row with the number 1 and the number 13. So that potentially as well is a reason why they're trying to just control the fields.
Yeah, it's like a couple of drivers further back as well. And looking at the 95 of Blix as well, also looking to be part of the same team. So yeah, some team play happening here potentially. And Linus Brustrom, of course, getting involved, getting in the middle of things, making it all a little bit messy to see what he can get out of it.
Yeah, he's doing a decent job though, as it stands, and just holding it there nicely. We have seen this outside line sort of to and fro. They did drop down quite a bit, but now they are starting to come back, as we are still starting to see actually a splinter in that pack as well, continuing as the drivers need to try and hold on to the slipstream. The number 1 gets ahead once again, coming in towards turn 3, but then drops back furthermore. So definitely not wanting to drop down to that low line as it stands. And as we come across the line to start lap 20, across the line, I think it's going to be Gunnarsson who just takes the lead for a lead lap. Of course, we have points for leading a lap, 1 point that is, but then you also get 2 points for the most laps led. So potentially something to think about, where you just sneak past in the outside line across the line.
Just taking a look here, it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 all from the same team, and they are definitely trying to do a very good job and doing a very good job of holding everyone behind them up. That's why they haven't been dropping down, because they don't want to allow the drivers on the outside to get a run and get up in front. They're doing a fantastic job of keeping that 1, 2, 3, 4 going.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like the Alcantech NHR team are doing good, of course, getting a few different sponsors on board, having a awesome time of it so far up towards the front. And I think control is probably the easiest way to describe the opening part of the race. If nothing changes as well, of course, I'm sure we're going to see some moves being done in the final couple of laps of the stage, but if nothing seems to be changing, they pretty much confirm to get a team win at least across the line and get the couple of stage points that come with that one. So certainly something to look out for as we talk about the points over the course of the season. It is 50 points for a race win, so that's a lot, but the extra point here and there will certainly add up by the time we get to Talladega and the end of the regular season.
Especially when you look at the point system, and yeah, there's a 5-point difference between first and second, but after that, you've got 1 point down the rest of the field. You're dropping 1 point for each position that you drop on track. And so the stage points, when there's up to 10 on offer, they can be incredibly useful to gain yourself a good couple of positions. If the gaps between points are that small, definitely worth going for those stage points. And that's why we definitely won't expect to see anyone making pit stops, at least before the stage breaks.
We are seeing a bit of a move to the top now. The back half of the bottom row will all move to the top in unison down that back straightaway. Is this a change of tactic? Do they see something changing in the latter parts of this stage, maybe moving themselves in play? We're coming to start lap 23, so just 7 laps to go in this stage. Are they starting to make moves towards the front?
Well, the last thing that you want to do is sit in a long train of single file cars, but if someone moves near the front of that single train out to the outside lane, they're going to get some draft, they're going to start making moves. You want to follow them. The last thing you want to do is get left behind, right? So I think once a couple of them went, they all had to go. Otherwise, they're losing out on a lot of draft, and they're going to have some problems. As you zoom in on these top 6 cars, they're running very close together in formation. That they have been, other than that one attempt made by the 71, it's been pretty standard for the first 23 laps of this race. But I think you're right, Cam, as you said a couple of laps ago, once we start hitting lap 28, lap 29, 30, I think even the teammates are going to start battling for those stage points.
Yeah, absolutely will. There might be teammates, but as ever, you want to be getting your own points, and it definitely comes to it comes down to what you want by the time we get to the end of the races, end of the stages, where the points are given out. And it's great to see these packs just coming down around this super speedway. We have seen that sort of third pack, or second pack I should say, on that back straightaway. They haven't actually dropped back as much as I was expecting. Of course, they're not going to be anywhere near the stage points, but when or potentially if we see a caution later on, they will be closing up. So always got to have your hopes, keep your hopes up for a track like this.
Here's my question to you, Cam. No one wants to pit during the first stage.
Ooh.
But what if we get a caution now? Do you pit?
That is an interesting one because, of course, if there's caution, you're sort of guaranteed your spot in the pack. So you won't have to defend for your positions, but then that might put you ahead. But it is going to be difficult again because we have another 30 laps to the next caution, so you don't want to be making too many moves. We're going to move to the front here as it looks like we're going 3 wide through turn 3 and 4. That's the number 77 of Helmbro coming towards the front. He's going to get himself from third, fourth in that train up towards second place on the outside line potentially. As we come across the line, people starting to make moves up towards the front. Can anyone cover him off? It doesn't look like Gunnarsson's going to drop down just yet. Yes, he does, to try and block him off. Oh, almost contact. Huge wreck there coming across the line. The number 1 is involved. Helmbro goes around as they try and defend each other from these runs. Perfect timing, Dane Baird, on the call of the caution as the drivers continue to wreck behind. They'll have to sort themselves out and get back in line for the pace car.
Still some contact being made, and that was a big one. It wasn't as big as it could have been, though. Most of the drivers involved did end up going straight down onto the infield. It was the inside line, and I'm going to say I am taking full responsibility for that wreck. I called the caution.
Commentator's curse doesn't exist.
Yeah, Lewis McGade in shambles right now, but this is what happened here. Oh, he just hooks on. I think he made the decision like a 1/10 of a second too late, and as he hops down, there's a bit of contact with the car behind. He hooks him around, and yeah, we'll see from here. He's staying up on the high line, staying up on the high line, staying up on the high line. Now he moves over. Does he move over? Sort of, not really. Helmbro goes for a gap. Does the gap exist? It's a little bit sketchy, but unfortunately that's how it ends up, and then absolute chaos.
Yeah, I think that's all on Helmbro, to be honest. Gunnarsson covered him off. There wasn't a car's rim, I would say, between Gunnarsson and the who's at the 95 on his F, the 140. The 140 does come up the slightest bit, but it's Helmbro 77 who sort of kinks right, and that's really what causes the contact. Unfortunately, of course, loads of cars then coming in afterwards and doing their best to avoid, but would definitely put the blame, I think, on the 77 for that one. Easily done, though, as the margins are so close. And as we come behind the pace truck, it is the 13 of Solo that leads the way from the 95 as we come very quickly towards the end of the first stage.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because the inside car moves up slightly, but I don't think that's the cause of it. I think what it is Gunnarsson came down. They are coming down the pit road, some of them. So with the lap that they're pitting now, they can get even green flag to the end of the second stage. So this is a tactical call, and everyone's going to follow in. So will anyone try and stay out, though, and try and get the lead, or are they all thinking further down the line? It looks like everyone is doing so. So one car actually does stay out. They couldn't quite see the number, but one of the black and orange cars there is staying out, as the drivers will come in for a couple of new tyres as well. As I mean, this is probably the perfect timing, because if everyone comes in, you also aren't losing your track position, or maybe you only gain or lose 1 or 2 places. And something to remember as well, if we do get a few more cautions in this race, you might be tempted to think, oh, I'll just change tyres at every stop because it'll give me an advantage now. But they are limited on how many tyre sets they have. They have 5 sets of tyres for the race. So you really don't want to be making too many tyre changes if you can help it. If you have a caution every, say, 10, 15 laps, there's going to be times where you're going to be like, no, I'm not taking tyres this time, I'll take it later. It looks like we have a train of 5 or 6 cars at the front that didn't pit, so they're going to be at the front of the field for the restart. My question is, are we going to restart before the end of stage 1, or are we going to restart into stage 2? I think we might be restarting to start lap 30, which would mean we'd have a 1-lap shootout for the end of stage 1.
It is pretty cool rule, actually, that we don't go to caution. So obviously they're thinking further into the race, but it does look like the 101 and the 71 have stayed out. They want to get those extra points for the stage win. The issue is they need to pit because they're not going to have much fuel left. Of course, the caution is going to help them, but let's even say they get to, say, lap 37 or something like that, 38, 40. They still need to pit again, whereas everyone else can go until the next stage. So interesting to see how this one works out for them, but they are obviously trying to sneak the points now, and hopefully for them we go caution over the stage. But either way, the drivers behind will be coming with new tyres as well, potentially with a bit more grip to overtake.
And pace lights are off on the pace truck, which means we are going to get back to racing at the end of this lap. Those cars coming out the pit lane have now got one very quick lap to try and get themselves all the way back around again before we go green once more. Double file restart zone is in effect, and we're going to have a 1-lap shootout for the stage points. So now, coming back to your point, Cam, I think if they pit after a few laps here, and then we get another caution before the end of stage 2, everyone's going to want to pit.
Yeah.
And then they won't have to pit. They'll be back up at the front again for the restart, and they'll have the front again for the end of stage 2. And then we've got a 65-lap period before the end of the race. I think that might be the gamble that they're taking. If they get the stage points now, that's great. If they don't, oh well. They still have a lot of points at the end of the race still up for grabs.
Caution now. So if a caution, then that is potentially going to be an issue for them. So that's what they're banking on. I think if it stays green, they are going to be in a worse stage. So as ever, you got to take some risks sometimes, but they're thinking if we get caution now, why aren't we going to see one in 2 laps time? It's certainly been a very interesting point for this race, as the drivers work their way to go back green. It is the first round of the season. The Bohlin Swedish E-Racing League has gotten underway. It's the Hårlinjen Timrå 500 here at Daytona International Speedway, as we're going to go green flag once again. The 101 taking them away, as it's going to be Linus Brunström in the 71 on the outside as well. As we get to the restart zone, the 101 is going to accelerate. Drivers in the background already trying to get their moves. Leader takes it away once again as we get going here again at Daytona. Of course, it's going to be important for these first couple of drivers, first 6 drivers it was, to stay out. They need to basically not let the drivers behind them through. This is, of course, the end of the first stage here at lap 30. Stage points on offer for the top 10. It might be the first round of the season, but every point is going to count. But as we get very shortly to Talladega, of course, and who is going to have the run towards the line? Who's going to get the push? At the moment, it's the 71 leading the way. Can the 49 and even the 13 in behind push him towards the line, or is it going to be shot in the number 101 machine coming towards the line? Looks like it's going to be the 71. Huge run as we come through the triangle, and he will take the stage 1 victory. But of course, we continue racing here in this league, so of course the points will be added up later, but we're going to continue here through into stage 2.
Top 2 down to the bottom now as well after the end of stage number 1, and into stage 2 we go. And your top 3 all on that inside line, and it gives Solo now, of course, the first driver who's taken tyres and has had a pit stop, out into the front of that outside lane. And sorry, look at the speed.
Yeah, awesome stuff there, of course. Oh, is that going to be another wreck? They might have saved it, but is there going to be further issues for the 24? It looks like everyone's checked up nicely, but there was definitely a big moment there and a touch of the wall as they drop down. The outside line is completely splintered, so has the inside line. They need to sort themselves out into a single file or some sort of order to catch back up towards the front, but that was a potential for a caution.
It definitely was. I would love to see another look at that, because it looked like there was a car that was blinking up near the front, and I think that's around the area where it all kicked off. We'll take a look.
Certainly this is going to be a bit of a yikes moment. So you've got 24 there, the white, red and blue machine coming up towards turn 3. It's all going well as it stands. This is Eracingligan for Force Esports, all looking calm and collected, still looking calm. Oh, potentially that is some unfortunate issues there with the car being sent into the wall, and he definitely will not be liking that because there's absolutely nothing he could do with that one.
Yeah, the car on the inside, I didn't quite catch the number. I think it was the yellow and black machine. Seemed to have lost connection for a second. That was Netco. That's exactly what it was. The car's disappeared, obviously with the connection issue. There's the 83 on the inside loses connection, and obviously iRacing has thought here, oh, they've gone straight and into them. So I think that's what's happened. And it looks, yeah, there was a little bit of a sort of graphical thing there. It looked like the 84 was actually in the wall for half a moment. As we come back to the green flag, some drivers already come into the pit lane. These are the ones, of course, who stayed out. They stayed out for the stage points. Again, is that the 101 all over the grass, completely missing the braking zone. Hopefully it doesn't get speeding from that, and actually is going to have to continue because they missed pit road. Do they have enough fuel, though, to go round? He does keep going. He didn't actually enter the pit lane. He realized, I think, early enough that he was not making it and skips over the trioval grass, but now he makes his way around once more. Does he have the fuel?
Yeah, the fuel is the biggest issue. He saved himself from the penalty, though, but that's certainly not going to be good as the drivers come back out. We've got the 37 and 71 there, doing good, at least in the 71, to get that stage win, but now they are going to be basically, best part of a lap down as you do on a green flag pit stop, and they are hoping now for another caution this stage. Otherwise, they're really going to have a difficult time from this. So back to the front, look how little cars we've got. What's that, 7 cars now in this leading train, as it's all changed from that first stage where we saw about 20 odd cars in the front pack, is now down to just 7 or 8 cars leading the way as we come out onto the back straight.
Yeah, of course, we had that incident. We're not entirely sure exactly what happened there, but we'll leave it at that. Involving the 24 car, obviously splintered up the field massively, and then half of the top train of cars are down into the pit lane now. So this is where these drivers here have the opportunity to break away as much as possible, but it's still 25 laps until the end of the next stage. And one more thing I did want to touch on real quick is for Linus Brostrom, he's got the stage win. He's also got 1 playoff point, right, for the playoffs later on in the season. And provided he gets there, that's going to help him out come the end of the season when things get spicy. So that is an extra thing that maybe a couple of these drivers had on their minds, as those playoff points are super helpful come the later stages of the season.
Yeah, that is very true, especially when we get down to the final couple of races of the regular season and you're fighting for those points. As we say, if you get the points earlier in the season, it just makes everything a lot easier. There's the 71 absolutely pushing there, the 37 trying to work their way back forward and try and not lose progress, because also with less cars in a train, they might actually be going slower if they don't work together. Fortunately, they've actually got 4 cars, so this might be okay, but look at the leading pack coming up behind them. Certainly a difficult situation now for these drivers, as they need to make sure, ideally as well, that they stay on the lead lap.
Yeah, staying on the lead lap is going to be important, because that will allow them to go all the way back around and join the back of the queue should we get a caution. If they do get overtaken by that lead pack and they go a lap down, and then I believe it's only going to be the first driver in that train, so the lucky dog that's going to be able to make it through. And now we have a swap at the top, so the 13 of Solo. Now, let's be fair, actually. Solo's been leading the train for pretty much the entire race. He was leading the inside train for the whole first stage, and then leading the outside train, which became just the single file train for the later parts of this second stage. So it makes sense. You want to cool the car down a bit, save some fuel, and push your teammates along for a bit.
Yeah, I definitely think that's just tactical play. They should, in theory, all have the same amount of fuel as well, because I would assume everyone would have completely topped the tank with it being a caution pit stop. So I don't think there's any sort of fuel number necessarily. It could be a temperature thing as well that you were saying, and also it might just be a concentration thing as well. It's very difficult to sit directly behind the cars like this for so long, so just let the 95 have a bit of a run towards the front. We did see in the background as well, I mean, they have dropped back quite a few seconds, but there's definitely a huge other pack of cars that's worked themselves out. The issue for them is, as well as ever, they're going to need cautions to catch back up. So let's see how long this one goes green, as we're already on to lap 40. The next stage is a lap 60, so 20 laps to go at the end of this lap.
And you can see there that pack of 4 cars, I think they're staying a pretty constant distance to the drivers behind them. The 2 trains aren't too different in terms of their size, so I don't think there's much of an advantage between these drivers here in the lead pack and the drivers just in front of them at the back of the lead lap. What I'm interested in is, if we see at the back of the shot here, maybe, not quite, is the pack just behind us. The second group of cars, they're going too wide all over the place in the background.
Yeah, I wonder if that's slowing them down just a little bit. They have lost so much time, but we did see the absolute mayhem that was coming after the contact with the 24 a little bit earlier. It really splintered the pack and has made it quite difficult for these drivers now if it goes green.
There they are in the background of the shot. You can see it's still too wide, and they are switching lanes and they are making moves. You can see on the timing tower, they're swapping back and forth constantly in those groups, as this lead pack just remains single file for now. Obviously, it's teammates, the first 3 drivers at least, so yeah, they're not going to be fighting too much. It's more of a question of keeping the cars behind. But here is the second pack. This is 9th place on back, and they're making some moves.
Yeah, they certainly are. As I'm just checking on time tower, it does look like the 101 got back and is a lap down for shot there. So even though he did miss the pit lane, it seems like he should be at least able to go back. And I think he was the first driver a lap down, so he should be able to get on the lead lap at a caution. But as ever, you're just playing a waiting game when you get down to that level. As the race continues on, about 1/3 into this race, Dane, you're mentioning about the tyres, of course, and with how it's going to work out for the drivers who pits that little bit earlier. They might be sort of on the limit of that, but I was thinking more fuel strategy. So to do it on 4 stints, so 3 stops, you need to go about 32 laps or so. This is another factor for those who stayed out in the caution. Potentially going to be able to do the race on 3 stops if it goes green. Whereas, whereas if you pit early, you're potentially going to have to make that 4th stop, and therefore that might be quite a big change. We're going to see another change of the teammates here. The 75 and the 13 are letting a couple of drivers through. They do not want to lead because on this race, I'm basically assuming they're going to try and drop down into the lower pack.
This is an odd one. I can't say I expected this to happen. Maybe they were expecting other drivers to follow them out on the outside line, but they are just being left behind at this point, and there's no gap for them to be able to get back in. They're dropping to the back of this group.
I think they're just going to try and go to the back, save some fuel at this point in the race. They've not really actually done too many efforts to get down. We have seen one of the cars get down. Hopefully they can let their teammates in. So that leaves the 81 Haflidarsson towards the front, the 112 in behind. And then the 35 of Ericsson is your top 3 as we're on to lap 43, about 1/3 of the way into this race. And of course, we've seen the race splinter up a bit, but it should come back together later on. Here is the 24 leading the second pack. He's the one who had that bit of contact earlier, who made that actually eventually caused this separation. They are trying to keep it too wide though with 2 lanes.
And look at who's on the inside lane, second row back, the number 1 car. Oh goodness, he's making moves back up, and he wants to get to the front of this train. Obviously involved in the wreck that brought out the caution, our first of the season, of the day.
The cautions, I think, as ever, will be the talking points of the race. Always, we've seen 2 teammates there drop down in front of the 24 machine. That's the 11 and the 22 of Strep and Carlen as they get down onto that inside line, which does seem a little bit superior, and that leaves 2 cars stranded, the 52 and the 58. They need to try and work their way down. They're not going to be doing anything in a 2-car pack.
Yeah, they've been hung out to dry for sure. Someone's got to go out there and help them, but do you take that risk, or do you just drive on by as if nothing's happening out of your right view mirror? We'll see. The 24 caught up to the two teammates, but he is definitely looking racy. He wants to make some moves. He's not content sitting behind the 22 for now, but he doesn't have any help, so he can't exactly make a move to the outside lane at this point, unless they go too wide in front. No, they stay on the bumper, but there's a lot of side-to-side going on from the 22. It's making me nervous for the 11.
Yeah, it's very difficult when you when you see the little wiggles like that. For some reason, it's something that we see a lot in sim racing compared to real life. You've seen them in real life, they stay dead nut straight when they're trying to, even when they're trying to go around the corners and they're trying to sort of keep on the bumper of the car ahead, they will stay, millimeters left and right. In sim racing, for some reason, we move half a car width left and right, and I don't know if it's because of internet connections or because of something to do with how the force feedback works in wheels, but it's just a very interesting thing to note. But it is a very, potentially that, but it is certainly a very dangerous situation.
It is quite terrifying. I don't think there's much of a scarier sight. Maybe seeing Lewis McGlade in your mirrors, but seeing a car in your mirrors on a super speedway going side to side as they're approaching your car, it is absolutely terrifying. It's the last thing you want to see, especially if it's your teammate, right? That's got to be worse, surely.
Yeah, I mean, you would think so, because you wouldn't want to be hit, of course, by your teammates. Rule number one is to not crash into your teammates. As we're going to see a change for the lead again. The 112 machine, Fredriksson, goes to the front as the 81 goes up high, tries to let some cars ahead. So everyone looks like they're fuel saving, maybe a bit temperature saving, but definitely fuel saving at this point in the race. They want to make sure they get past this second stage and then have some nice pit strategy to the end of the race as well. Because the thing is, we're going to get to lap 60. If you then pit the next lap, at the end of lap 60, you then have 65 laps to go, which means 2 slightly longer stints if you want to go to the end on just one stop. So they want to go as long as they can on this stint to try and help them towards the end. And I think that's why we're seeing some drivers swap around and not leading for too long. As ever, the race continues down the back straight and the drivers up towards the front of the pack. They try and continue this race, of course, getting very quickly to lap 50, and therefore not too many laps to go till the halfway point in this race. The first round of the season. As ever, the first chance and the first opportunity for the drivers to score some points in this race. We're getting a 2-car breakaway at the front. I don't think that's going to last too long, as the 292 of Olsen is going to be catching back up. But certainly some other names getting towards the front, as no one wants to lead. We see Hafler Darson in the 81. He's dropped all the way down to 7th place after leading. Solo in the 13. He's dropped down to 8th place as well. Seems like P1 isn't the place you want to be apart from the end of the stages.
I think you're definitely right. It is a fuel thing, because these drivers, remember, they all pitted on lap 27, right? So they've already been going for 21 laps, and so they're reaching that sort of 30 lap mark that you don't want to be reaching before the end of the stage. So you want to be out on the track at the end of the stage, unless there's a caution, of course, like we saw at the end of stage 1. You want to be out there. You don't want to be running low on fuel and have to pit on the last lap of the stage. That's going to be really sad for you. So you want to be making sure that you are out there and you have the fuel to be able to push for the last couple of laps of the stage. Not only make it to the end, but be able to push and make moves. So I think that's what the drivers in that team at the back are now doing. They drop to the back, saving a little bit of fuel on the train, and then they're going to start working on moving up towards the last couple of laps of the stage, maybe in about 5 laps or so.
Yeah, it's one of those things. When we get to the final couple of laps, we're going to start seeing the moves. But that, of course, is when we saw the caution at the end of the first stage. So you got to be doing your moves very nicely, very calmly. But when you start going 2-3 wide, like we saw on that occasion when the number 1 machine involved that time around, definitely can work out for you, good or bad. The number 1 isn't actually terribly far down, all things considered. With another caution, they will be back up towards the front. Of course, reigning champion of Gunnarsson, as they work their way through into the darkness. The sunlight is almost fully gone here at the Daytona International Speedway as the drivers continue their way through this race onto lap 51. All the two superior teammates almost make a bit of contact there on the back straight.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, they are racing a little bit sketchy there, but nothing too serious, at least for now. But yeah, in this front train here, I did want to point out that right at the back, the train of 4 cars, they are actually gaining on the lead pack. They're increasing the gap behind them. They're not staying, and they're not even dropping back into the lead pack. They're not in danger of going a lap down. They're catching up, which is good to see. It looks like they're running the draft just a little bit better than the drivers in that lead pack are.
And it's certainly a important tactic if you want to catch up in a smaller pack. You just got to get as close as you can to each other and really push each other along. It's not an easy thing to do, though. It's definitely something you have to practice, you have to get, but we are now into the 6th season of this championship, the Bohlin's Swedish e-racing league. And the drivers, of course, many of them have been around for that long and know exactly what they're doing. It's definitely a different style of racing, something that takes a bit of finesse in many ways. You're not making the overtakes side by side like you would on a road course, but you are using your racecraft and your aerodynamics to try and push you up towards the front, but hopefully push in a good way and not end up in the wall.
Yeah, and not ending up in the wall is always the most optimal situation, right? I mean, that's pretty much the last place that you want to be in. Unfortunately, we've already had a few drivers make their way up high and into the fence. Nice to see some of the drivers actually having zoom. Like they're joining the zoom, they're getting their faces on screen. We love to see it. Adds a bit of personality to the stream, puts a face to the name. It's always great to see, and it also makes our producer Josh Lee incredibly happy. So I will say that to the drivers: if you want to make our producer happy, show us your face.
Yeah, certainly a good opportunity, and it's what we like to see, actually putting a face to the name, and of course getting a few seconds of yourself onto the screen. It's a good way actually to get your car shown as well, because we can show your face at the same time. So we've got a few sponsors that you want to get going. Definitely get on the Zoom call when the drivers get that information for the next race, which of course is in a couple of weeks. We're racing every 2 weeks pretty much from now until May. So the season goes on for a long time. We have Talladega on the 29th of February. That is, of course, a leap year next year, 29th of February. That is the final round of the regular season before we have 5 weeks of the playoffs before we crown the champion at Homestead, Miami on the 9th of May, 2024. So lots of racing action coming away over the next 9 months, and certainly a lot of miles to be had with all of the races that we are going to be doing. This is, of course, one of these slightly longer races as well, with the 125 laps here at Daytona. So we're seeing a couple of cars again moving out up towards the front pack here, trying to actually dropping back once again. Is that Blix and his teammate Solo just trying to drop back a little bit more? No, they're actually trying to get a run here, maybe starting to work their way towards the front as we close in on the end of stage 2.
They're going to do now what the group of 4 at the back of the field, or the back of the lead lap anyway, are successfully doing. They've gained about 10 seconds, maybe even 15 seconds in that group of 4 to exactly what these 3 on the outside are doing now. Their teammates, they're probably in communications with each other, and they're going to try and work on going all the way around the high line, using the draft as well as possible and getting up into the lead of this race towards the stage. But that is exactly what I thought might happen. Alston to the outside lane, he's getting in front of them, and now he's getting pushed and getting a little bit loose as he does so. But look at how much extra speed this outside lane has.
Yeah, the 292 timed that perfectly. Oh, gets a bit of a push. He goes wide. Can he bring it back down in front of the 95? Can't quite cover him off. The 95 has to get out of the throttle there to avoid contact like we saw a little bit earlier. The issue is that slowed them down. So the 3 teammates drop to the bottom, and the 292 is going to be left out to dry once more as the 95 goes past him. And as we now come on to lap 57, the race, of course, continues on towards the end of stage 2. And the drivers trying to get themselves up towards the front. It was a good run there, but unfortunately the teammates were not able to get through. Oh, they try again though.
More drivers making that happen, and this time, that actually worked quite well. It looked like the 39 of Zachristen had a good run already, so didn't slow these 3 on the outside up too much. And the inside line now getting hung out to dry. The 5 cars stronger than 3, and the teammates move down to the inside line one by one. Is there space to do it? Just about. And there goes Blix up to the race lead, and I must say they played that to perfection.
Absolutely, that's the Alcantech squad working their way towards the front. Lap 58 now, so 3 more including this one, and it's all changed. The superior cars, they were leading the way in the 11 and the 22. They're going to be dropping to the back of this pack. Well, I was saying the wrong cars. Actually, it's the 35 who's dropped to the back of the pack there. Of course, he was up towards the front, but couldn't hold on to it. The 112 as well. They're all over the road. They're trying to work a second lane to get past, and that is what you need to do. And somehow, the Alcantech NHR cars have got themselves to the front.
Are we going to see some teammates battling now for these stage points and for the playoff point as well? Because only one person can get that.
Potentially. We did see the 2 cars of the 13 and the 95 swap around to get into this formation earlier in the stage. And on the penultimate lap, I wonder, will they swap back? Is there going to be any sort of team play to get solo those extra points? We'll certainly have to find out. As they're dropping a couple of cars, it looks like they have a lot more speed, do these Alcantech cars, as we get to the end of this first stage. Just 1.5 laps to go, as the 95 maybe is going to struggle to hold on to this.
The thing is I don't think they can do team orders very effectively without allowing the cars behind to catch back up and potentially take the win away from them in this stage. But we'll find out soon enough as we get on to the last lap of the second stage, who is going to come out on top.
Yeah, a few drivers in pit road as well, so they couldn't make it to lap 60. That's unfortunate for them, but of course they weren't getting the playoff points anyway. We're on to the final lap of stage number 2. First round of the season, second stage of the night, and it's definitely getting very close between those teammates up towards the front. But the Alcantech guys, 1, 2, 3 as it stands. Can anyone take it away from them? The 292 tried it a few laps ago, but the 13 there pushing his teammate towards the line, as the second stage should be a victory, at least for this team. But which car is going to be? Is the 13 going to pull out, or is he going to let his teammate, the 95, take the lead? Of course, they lost out on the stage win last time due to the caution and pitting just before the stage window. We're seeing another car there, the 35 drop in, but across the line is going to be the 95 of Blix, who takes the second stage here for the Hårlinjen and Timrå 500, and certainly a good night for those guys so far. But the race continues. No cautions in this league, as so many drivers coming in. They realized they weren't going to make that stage points, so now they want to be going to the end of the race. There's the 24 who caused that, almost caused the second caution.
The 11 was backwards. I'm not sure if there was contact in the pit lane or if he got all the braking all wrong, but a lot of these drivers didn't finish the lap before they stopped in the pit box, because the finish line is only halfway down the pit lane.
Yeah, I reckon some of the drivers maybe just over pushing it in towards the braking zone, as all the other drivers now, as you'd expect. We finished the stage and now coming in, so it's not a caution. He's missed pit road. Which car is that? Is that the 95? No, it wasn't. It was the other machine, 81 potentially, dropping out there, unfortunately, having to go around again like we saw earlier, and that is not going to be good. It is Haflid Arson. He's going to have to go around. Does he have enough fuel? He should do, because they were doing a lot of saving there, but that is certainly not good. He's going to lose a lot of time from this.
Yep, that's the biggest thing, is the amount of time that you lose now, because normally a lap at Daytona, you're flat out and you're at your top speed for pretty much the whole thing. He started basically from 0, right? So that lap is going to be the same as an out lap in qualifying, completely useless. He's losing 10 plus seconds from that just because he's starting the lap off slowly. If he has enough fuel to get to the end, we'll see. But that is a disaster, and I don't see it very often, but now we've seen it twice. The drivers just misjudging their braking zones.
It is a difficult thing to do. Of course, the brakes are absolutely stone dead cold. Yeah, definitely not the easiest thing to do. It is wide though at Daytona. There's a lot of space to find your braking point, but not easy, as we're seeing the other drivers now continue to come in. Of course, we won't really go through your order as it stands, because the drivers are going to be sort of all over the shop. But here is the list of drivers. These are the ones who didn't pit at that first stage, so they pit under green during the second stage, and of course are now trying to cycle themselves up towards the front. As it stands, the 37 of Ericsson are leading the way from the 83, the 71, the 49, and then of course there's another driver just in the back, maybe the 79 as well. No, it's a driver who's lapped down, my bad. Top 4 there are on the lead lap. Now and they are leading the way. The issue for them is they now are sort of quite a bit out of kilter, and with 63 laps to go, they are going to have shorter pit stops, but how is this one going to work out?
Yeah, I mean, you can see how much time they've gained, right? So because of the pit strategy that they made, how quick their last stint has been. We didn't really pay too much attention to them because they were at the very end of the lead lap and there was stuff going on further up in front. But now they're leading by 17 seconds. And the cars behind aren't in that much of a group. You've got 4 cars behind them in a group, and then you've got 3 seconds back to the next group as well. They have teammates behind them in Solo and Blixt. But yeah, it's going to be tricky for the drivers behind to catch up to them. If we can get a caution, you know, they could end up back near the front again. And I think they've gambled, but it may well pay off.
Yeah, it might just do. I think it depends when, as the 37 is coming down to pit road already. So that's a bit earlier than we were potentially expecting. But let's see how this one continues. And yeah, I think it depends on the timing of the next caution. It's going to be very crucial to which strategy is going to work out. As ever, the cautions can put a dent to a strategy, or it can really affect one. We have 61 laps to go, so easily get to the end on obviously the stop that these guys are about to make, and then one more. The drivers who pit a little bit earlier, they are going to have to do a bit of fuel saving to the end. So these drivers, we were saving potential up to 35 laps. We're on 31 now of this stint. How far can they go? That is going to be a big question. Whoever pits, though, I think they will need to follow each other in to make sure that they get the draft on the outlap. Of course, coming to 60 laps to go in this race. So we're over halfway into the first race of the season. And it's definitely been a strategic one so far. We've got 3 drivers who are at the front here. These drivers saw pit earlier, and therefore they went to the back. So they pit earlier when it was green, so they obviously lost a lot of time. But now they've cycled towards the front, whereas loads of people pit under caution during that first round of pit stops. It's given them about an 18-second lead so far. They're working themselves together, but they are going to have to come into the pit lane. They all do on this lap, as they try and get it slowed down. No one going too deep this time around, but where are they going to come out? They're of course going to be behind the lead pack, but how far behind, and can they work their way back up?
Yeah, into their boxes they will go, and here comes the new leading pack. Already made their pit stops a few laps ago at the end of stage number 2, and out into the front they go. Again, a 4-car train. And the cars in front of them, they are looking to try and avoid being lapped, but they do go up high and allow it to happen. So the 13 of Solo out in front of this race once again, of course, led most of stage 1, but was pipped to the lead, the win of that first stage because of the late caution, and Linus Prostrom and the gang not pitting. So different strategies right at the beginning of the race, now starting to play out as we've passed the halfway point. And no more stages, now it's just a full-on race to the finish.
It's going to be a big battle, I think, between those 2 strategies. The next caution is going to be very, very crucial. So all the drivers just need to keep it calm. The good thing in terms of the drivers who don't want a caution is that because the drivers are a lot more spread out across the track now, we don't have all 30-odd cars in one train or in 2 trains at the front. We are just seeing a few different splintered packs. That, of course, reduces the potential for a caution, but it's never down to 0. So you've always got to keep your wits about you and be ready to change your strategy. But cautions aren't necessarily a bad thing. Drivers involved in the first one, my goodness, and he's still in that 8th place, just in that sort of second pack, 5 seconds off the lead pack, and is not doing too bad. But as we were saying earlier, it still needs that caution to get towards the front. You can't even see the second pack, but they are there, just coming through the trioval.
And making their way onto the front stretch again, and up towards the trioval we'll have 56. Oh no, I've got my... What? How have I done that? That's the backstretch. Never mind.
I mean,
that's really bad.
They're left-handed turns, so I'll give you that one, that they do look straight. But also the good thing about this track as well is obviously the tri-oval straight and then the back straight as such are completely different. So
they're really bad.
Yeah,
that was really
bad. For the next one, 57 laps to go, which is nice because that's my race number. Oh, actually, no, it's not. It's going to be 56 because, of course, it goes down. I did a Dane bed just after mocking him for it.
We're in shambles. We're in shambles.
Absolutely. Solo leads the way still in the 13 machines. Got the 95 in behind, then the 272. It's myself, Cam Roger, and Dane Bed alongside as we're getting
just give us Kansas already
into the second half of this race. Is the Hårlinjen in Timrå 500 to open the season of the Bohlin's Swedish e-racing league, and it's certainly been a strategic one so far. We've got a few drivers in this lead pack. But the thing is, so the back half of them, they are laps down, trying to pull themselves back. It is the top four on your screen there that are basically the top four, and they're completely out front. Lindoff in the number 5 machine, so the number 8 machine is in P5. And then all these drivers, as you see, they've done 2 pit stops already, but it's just with how everything works, with where you come out of the pit lane, do you get the draft on the outlap, things like that have really just splintered the pack on the green flag pit stops.
Yeah, they really have. And you can see just how splintered the pack is. You've got the top 5 cars here, and then you've got another 6 cars further back, then you've got another sort of 8, 9, 10 cars behind them. You've got some drivers that are lapped down for various reasons. We've had one wreck, another half wreck, and then some drivers missing the pit entry. And all that means we've got a lot of single file going on at the present, with 55 laps to go. 54 laps to go.
The drivers, of course, just continuing at this point, going forward. There's no stages left, so now you just need to work out how am I going to get over this next 54 laps, sorry, 54 laps, because realistically, you're going to want to have the best tyres and no fuel management in the final stint. So how long can you drag this one out? Can you just do anything to make yourself go that little bit further? That's what's going to be important. It's never sort of easy doing that, but if you can keep yourself calm at this stage of the race, it will pay dividends later on. So we come back to this battle a little bit further down the field. Of course, these drivers, they're still having hopes of a caution to get themselves up towards the front. There's that second pack that we were talking about with the number 8 of Lindoff there leading the way, the 24 pushing him along, before we see Ericsson just in behind in that 35 machine. They're not too far off this lead, but they're really going to need to work together if they want to catch up, and they have actually a little bit. They've got about a second in the last 5-10 laps.
Starting to work on that draft, and if we can get these guys up into the front pack, then that will make a lot of people very happy. I think Solo and Blix would prefer to have their little pack all to themselves. But with the single file going on at the moment, what we need is a driver to take a risk. But the thing is, out in this front pack, they don't want to, because they're perfectly happy being in the top 6 or 7 car. And in the second pack, they're trying to catch up to the first pack, and too wide is not the way of doing that. So right now, we've got a single file for the time being until we can get the number 8 car of Lindoff up in towards the draft of Stromberg behind. That's what we're sort of looking at here.
And then I wonder how, from your perspective, obviously I know you're not the biggest driver anymore, but from a driving perspective, how would you attack this race? They pit with about 65 laps to go, if I can get my words out. 65 they pit to go. How would you attack that? That means they need to do about a 33 lap stint and a 32 lap stint to the end. But are you going to try and eke it out? Are you going to try and go as long as you can? Or do you want to be pitting the earliest you can and actually doing it the other way around and trying to get that track position should there be a caution?
I would probably, myself, and I'm not going to claim to be a smart driver. This is what I would do. I've only ever done one full-length NASCAR race. I did win it, but we'll leave it there. It was the Coke 600, but we'll leave it there. I would gamble on a caution because it's a super speedway, and when you come to the last few laps of the super speedway, you're going to get a caution, and that's just how it works. And then I would probably say I would pit maybe with 10 laps to go, I would push as hard as I can. If I'm in this front pack here, try and build up a gap and then pit when I need to pit, and then pit again, maybe 10 laps to go, and gamble on the fact that there's going to be a caution and I don't have to pit and I can take sort of a top 5 position there.
And of course, you do have the potential for some green-white checkers later on, so may not keep within the lap limit, but of course you do have the overall time limit of 2 hours 10. But with how we've been going, we shouldn't be having too many issues. Just the one caution so far in the opening parts of the race, as the drivers are now going all over the place. They're trying to get themselves now back into a pack. We are getting a bit of side by side. There's a bit of a run there for a second, but that was just blocked off in this lead pack as the drivers still continue to work their way through. We are getting this second train out really catching up. They're about 2 seconds back as the leaders continue their battles all the way through. We've got the 95 leading from the 13. We've got the 297 as well in there, and the number 64 for the top 4. Got a couple of lap cars before this second pack is really starting to close in as they're going all over the shop now, back down to the low line. Oh, no,
underneath the yellow line.
That was potential for a huge wreck there with the 42. The 42 there, that is not on the lead lap, but definitely getting involved and trying to let these top 2 get away.
Well, here we go. Do you know what that's done? It slowed everybody up in this front pack. So now our second pack is making some moves and they're already catching up, and we are going to get some racing here with 47 laps to go. It'll take them a lap to catch up. That wasn't a mistake. I said 47 intentionally.
So after about 10-15 laps of calm, we are starting to get things ramping up. There's no stage to look at, but we do have the reason why we're starting to see them go is because the leaders saw that second train coming up. They don't want it to get into a big pack race, so they're trying to pull away. The issue is the 95 and 13 is going to be difficult for them to work together. They got their teammate in the 42 a lap down trying to help them, but I don't know how that's really affecting them, as we've now got a huge train up towards the front. 48 laps to go, 3 wide as we get in towards the restart zone there. And the 292 still trying to get back down onto the low line, but it keeps on getting blocked off.
We stay single file for now, but I think as soon as we get these drivers catching up, what they wanted to do, these 3 at the front, is yes, having one driver at the front of each line is helpful, but that doesn't stop the outside lane getting a good run, and then the driver in second in your lane hopping out in front, right? You don't want that to be happening. You want to try and have control like they did for the entirety of the first stage. They had 4 drivers at the front. The top 2 in each line were from the same team, and so they never had the worry of someone's going to get in front of us. They're trying to accomplish the same sort of thing here with the 42, I think, and it didn't quite work out for them. I don't think they anticipated the 292 getting so racy with them trying to make some moves. And now they have this really weird limbo situation where they have 2 drivers, and now I'm not sure what they should do. Should they try and keep hold of both lanes when these drivers eventually catch up to them? Do they both stay on the inside, both go to the outside? So we'll see what they do when the time comes. It looks like the 292 is even looking for second place potentially.
Yeah, the 42's really dropped off actually as the pace is, I think, starting to increase up towards the front as we've got a 3-car breakaway. The 64 there, the black car of Strumberg, is still just hanging on as the top 4 regain their composure. Everyone's got back down towards a single file formation. They should be catching up, but what the 42 did there was actually really good. It sort of split away this top 4 actually from a couple of the other lap runners, although the issue is that second pack is still really charging down on them. Just 1.2 seconds is the difference between the first and second pack here. 45 laps to go as the games start to come in.
These top 4 cars in the train have a little bit of a gap behind them still. They're side by side a little bit further out. 2 lanes starting to form. This is what we wanted to see. But the driver's still up and down the racetrack, not really deciding which lane they want to be in, and all the while they're doing that, they're losing time to the drivers out in front. They're going to need to make their way up through the field. They're going to need to commit and really work together to get up to the front of this field.
The one thing that's so crazy about this style of racing that you can easily forget is it can look so calm for the leaders because they're just going flat out. But the guys behind being pushed, they're going maybe 10-15 Ks quicker, catching up. And it doesn't look like it, but all of a sudden everyone just closes and bunches up, and that is what we've got with this huge train of cars towards the front, with the blessed lap 44 to go in this race. We've got Bohlin in the 95 still leading with his teammate Solo. They've pretty much led the whole of this race so far, but can they take victory in 43 laps time as we come across the line through the triangle? We're starting to get a second train forming on the outside of the 24 pushing. Can't quite see who it is. One of the white and orange cars there on the outside might be the 58 machine of Nyholm on the outside. We've now seen the 292 jump up onto the outside line. 2x2 formation coming back in. We haven't seen this for about 60 odd laps.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of this kind of racing here, isn't it? The 292 up into the overall lead of this race, and they're 2 cars ahead. The 95 and the 13 have dropped back down now to 3rd and 5th. As the top 2 drivers, they're staying up high. They're trying to gain as much of an advantage as possible here. The inside line is absolutely nowhere. And look at the drivers behind. They're all going up high, and they're Blixt and Solo getting hung out to dry. Yeah, the 95 and the 13. Now look, everyone's going to drop back down as we saw the breakaway happen in this second train, and now they've gone ahead. And it's crazy just how quickly things can turn around if you work together with a couple of drivers. 42 to go in this race. Moves being made. The second pack have caught up quite a few seconds over the course of this third stint in the race so far, as they continue the race on. It's going to be action all the way to the end, I think, from now, as the drivers are starting to make some moves. I don't think it's too bad, though, for the 95 and the 13. They can now save a bit of fuel. They just need to keep this pace up. Of course, they were pretty much one of the first ones to pitting as soon as stage 2 finished. Yeah, but the one thing that you really have to remember is that they've got cars on the outside of them now, so they're not going to be able to make that move that they like to do where they go up together. They had 3 of them last time. They've only got 2 this time. It's very different to what we saw at the end of stage 2, and there's a lot more cars involved, so it's going to be more tricky for them to make their way up towards the front. But of course, we're only a few laps away now from heading into the pit cycles, so that is also going to be interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is. As we come around turn 3 and 4, there'll be 40 laps to go in this race. The 292 leads. We're starting to get a bit of a run on the outside there as well, trying to make something happen. Everyone wants to be at the front at this point of the race, but who is going to be leading the way at the end? That is what matters. And as we come to 40 to go, we'll go RaceSpot side by side and get some messages from our sponsors.
Behöver du en bil? Mabe hyrbilar finns på över 150 platser i landet och vi har nästan lika många modeller att välja på. Mabe hyrbilar. Hyrbilar som passar dig.
Hos Bright Esports i Västerås kan du testa på både NASCAR och olika formulabilar, precis som Svenska Eracingligan's deltagare. Gå in på brightesports.com och boka just din tid.
And the Hårlinjen in Timrå 500 continues for the first round of the season for the Bohlin Swedish E-Racing League 2023-24 season. It's been an action-packed opening part of the race. To myself, Cam, Roger, Dane Bed alongside me in the commentary booth, and Joshua Lee doing production behind the scenes of this RaceSpotTV broadcast as we bring you the final parts of this race. 38 remain as the 292 leads across the stripe. It will be. He's got all these drivers in behind though who want to take that race victory away, and we're still waiting for the final pit stop in a few moments time. So Olsen from Strindberg at the front, and then we continue with a whole host of drivers including the 95 and the 13 who of course were leading the way for so long, but unfortunately need to work their way back up as his second train of cars, Dane, absolutely storm past them and now lead the race.
That's exactly right. And with 37 to go, we are only a couple of laps away from when we expect to see some cars pulling down onto pit road, and that will be very interesting indeed to see how will the pit strategies work out. And we have quite a few cars up here in the front pack that will all be pitting relatively the same time. You wouldn't expect more than a lap or two's difference between the laps these drivers make their way down to pit road, assuming we don't get another caution. So this is going to be a crucial point in the race now, is pick your strategy and pick it wisely. Are you going to try and make this run last as long as possible, or are you going to set yourself up for a long final run to the line? The risk is, of course, the green-white checkered, right? So if the race ends on a caution, it doesn't. So we're going to keep going. And if we do end up going for longer than the race is supposed to last, a lot of drivers will have to pit for fuel, right? So there is a little bit of strategy you got to think about there. How much extra fuel am I going to run in the car? Praying that maybe it's going to go to green-white checkered finish. There's a lot of different things the drivers have to think about in these next couple of laps.
It's all about timing of the cautions. If you pit early, you in theory should get track position should there be a caution midway through the final stint. However, if the caution is right at the end on, say, the final lap and we go to overtime, that is where you're going to start running out of fuel. So you definitely want to go longer. 35 to go. This is the absolute limit. If you want to get to the end, this is the absolute limit. The issue is you're going to need some slipstream as well. So let's see if anyone chooses that option to come into the pit lane, or is everyone going to stay out? It's also a difficult one. If 3 or 4 cars in front of you come in, are you going to follow them so you get the slipstream on the outlap? Is a very tricky choice that the driver's going to have to make, because it could make or break the victor of this race.
It's crazy to think that the decision you make so far in advance can have such a massive impact. Here we go then. Are we going to see any drivers pull down into the pit lane on this lap? I didn't expect to, but we did see one at the back. That's the 42 car, I believe.
Yeah, lap down. So maybe having some issues earlier, which got them there. We're also seeing Johannesson in the 52, so 42 and 52, both in the pit lane. A couple of others as well. So these drivers, they're banking on cautions. Of course, if you're lap down, a bit more difficult, but either way, they're banking on cautions. They're trying to just hope for something towards the end of this race. And as the laps goes on, it makes it easier and easier. And look at the whole train of cars. You've got to pick your pit lap correctly. You've got some friends around there. You want to be pitting with them as well. And of course, taking those tyres to have good speed in this final stint coming up.
Here we go. Round the final corner. A couple drivers at the back of the train. They're hopping in now as well. I would say this is the earliest lap I would feel comfortable pitting, that I would be happy that I'd make the end of the race, as the 22 car has maybe a slight problem there on the entry to the pits. Only just about makes it under the braking, was very sideways on entry and overshot the pit lane, and that is worst case scenario. You've now lost a couple seconds, and now we wait to see who else is going to join them down into pit road as this lead group dwindles in size. I think the early pitters, they'll want to pit now, but if it was me in the car, I would want to run this this stint as long as possible. I will go probably until lap maybe 31 to go, 30 to go, but we'll see now. Where do people decide to go in? A lot of people behind going in. Only 3.
Yeah, the 24 goes in. Then also, who's that? That's the 112 coming in as well, and then his teammate just in behind. So definitely that's what we saw a teammate thing. And last time, the couple of cars coming in, they were the superior teammates as well. So they, of course, wanted to pit at the same time to work together on the outlap. So we've still got, 6 cars remaining now in this lead pack, getting closer to 30 laps remaining. And the longer they go, the better it's going to be for them in theory. But of course, you need to see where these guys are going to work out with some of the drivers who pit and so we're on that strategy off. P10 now is Brewston in the 71 machine taking that first stage victory as everyone now comes in, all those 6 cars with 32 laps remaining. Will be 31 as we come across the stripe. So that's what they want to do to the end of the race. Of course, the 71 and co in that sort of second pack on the alternate strategy, they're going to go back to the front now, but they as well in turn will need to pit in a few laps time.
Now for them, the best case scenario is that we go until they have a pit stop, and if we get a caution shortly after that, they are laughing, right? Because they then have fresher tyres, they have a shorter pit stop now as well that they can probably get away with, and they get track position. They will be probably the happiest drivers out on the circuit. They're going to have a shorter final stint. They could gamble, take more fuel than anyone else can, and if we get a green, white, checkered finish, they won't have to pit for fuel. Yeah, they'll have track position.
Yeah, we could potentially have up to 3 green, white checkers as well. So, of course, the caution laps, the pace car laps are a lot slower, so you use a lot less fuel, but still something to work out. As we come to 30 to go, the 71 leads across the line with the 49 in behind, and then there is the 101 machine, who unfortunately is down after missing the pit lane, the pit speed limiter line, and unfortunately had to go around and is now a lap down. So it's really just those 2 cars at the front leading the way, but they have got a big 25-second gap. Of course, not enough to pit and then come out ahead, but they will certainly have a slightly shorter stop if they do underfuel the car, so that will save a few seconds.
I'm not going to lie, they're not in a bad spot regardless of cautions, actually, because like you said, they're going to have a shorter stop potentially. I don't actually know off the top of my head, because fueling is an 80% restriction on the fuel tank that they have, so they can only fill up 80% of the tank. That's why our laps in each stint are slightly limited compared to what you'd expect. They'll be pitting in the next couple of laps. They'll have less fuel they need to put into the car, and they are gaining time. They've been gaining time consistently since the end of stage 1. They've been on it. It could be interesting.
It's certainly going to be a strategic battle to the end. Here is the number 8, though, leading what effectively is this the leading pack, or are we saying the 2 ahead of the leading pack? We'll certainly have to find out. They are 26 seconds behind as the 2 teammates there are working together. Obviously, the 112 lap down, but helping his teammate in the number 8 machine, the 24 in behind, who had definitely a huge moment a bit earlier on before the other cars continue to come through. The 95 and the 13 have completely gone out the window, at least towards the front of that field. They've really dropped back and need to do some strategic racing to get themselves up towards the front. Although, Dave, we did see this earlier. They sat on the back of the pack and they chose their moment, and then when they did, they got to the front very, very quickly.
Yeah, but they had 3 cars then, and I can't help but feel like with 2 cars, they're going to be much more susceptible to what we've seen in the past happen to them already when they've tried that move in other times. They've had Olsen, for example, when the 292 blocked them. They've had a couple of other drivers as well go for blocks, and here comes this lead pack, quote-unquote, of these 2 drivers, Brostrom and Tyr, and also a lap car slightly further back into pit lane, and here is what will become the de facto lead pack, bumping their way down the super stretch and into 3 and 4. They'll definitely catch up and overtake the 8 into the 24. The 49 and the 71. But what's the gap going to be like?
Obviously, get another car coming into pit lane. That's a car, I believe, a lap down, but certainly, the 83 machine. Actually, no, from 13th place, but definitely just having to come into the pit lane. So they are actually, the 83 was in that pack with Linus in the 71 a bit earlier, but that's how much time they lost. Actually, was that whole 24 seconds. Pretty crazy compared. So we go back to the front of the race, and as it stands, the 8 is still leading that way, with his teammate right ahead, a lap or just shy of a lap down, helping them go. But where can these, what can the 71 do? Being pushed with the 49, it's going to be difficult for them. They are hoping for cautions if it stays green to the end, but they are in a good place if we do get cautions.
Yeah, and it being a super speedway, and now we have a big lead pack, right? We've got a lot of drivers in this pack now. I think it's probably almost a safe bet to assume there will be cautions, and if there are cautions just before the end of this race, when the racing gets a little bit tougher and they're going to start going for maybe more risky moves and just overall getting closer together, the cautions are bound to come, surely. We've actually had a very relatively clean race. I mean, we've had single file racing for most of it after the first caution. I think it's only a matter of time before we start seeing drivers going for things that maybe they wouldn't have if it was lap 30, say.
Yeah, we're on to obviously lap 100 now as well. One caution so far. That is definitely pretty good going, especially for the first round of the season. But when we get to the final few laps of the race, especially maybe the final 10 laps of the race, everyone's going to start going for moves. You're potentially going to see a two wide train as well, and it's going to be so difficult to keep the cars in a straight line when everyone is, especially in the final few laps, everyone's going to be flat out. No one is going to be lifting. You're just going to be pushed and pulled around in the pack. So definitely need to find some friends to have in front and behind you coming towards those final few laps of the race.
.25 to go. It will become 24 as they cross the line, and still entirely single file in this lead pack of cars, and a lot of drivers now have been lapped at this point. We don't have too many drivers still on the lead lap of this race. Looking at sort of the top 20 or so drivers, 24 drivers that are on the lead lap still, and they are steadily getting caught by this lead pack as the drivers a bit further back. You can see them on the front of the screen now. They're going side by side, and whilst yes they are going very quickly, they're not going as quickly as this lot. The teammates drafting, doing a fantastic job of it. They're catching slowly. The traffic, if they're going 2x2, could play a factor here as cars behind these teammates at the front try and make some moves.
Yeah, the lapped down cars and just other cars getting involved is potentially going to be a struggle for these drivers, as there's a huge pack as well that they're going to have to try and work their way through. Got to hope that they can get some momentum to just freight train it, but we'll see, because they are a little bit sort of opened up. They're not sort of bumper to bumper to bumper, pushing each other forward, you know, or at least not as neatly as they could do. So potentially something to look out for there, as everyone is just remaining in their position as it stands. No one is trying to make a breakaway just yet. No one's trying to get into a second line. They all seem to be continuing on well.
I'm interested in what the 24 is thinking right now, because obviously you're in the third in this line, in this train of cars, but in actual fact you're in second. The car in front of you is in first, but the car in front of them is a lap down, and the leader of the pack, it's an interesting one to try to think of, how am I going to get past this number 8 car if the driver in front of them is going to draft them all day long? You're not going to get any help from anyone in front of you, and you don't have, I don't think anyway, teammates behind, so it could be an interesting one to try and get that lead of the race. The 24's in a bit of a tricky spot here. As for the drivers behind, if they're trying to make their way forward, it doesn't look like we have a whole lot of teammates going on, at least not in this top 6 or 7 cars. So 21 laps to go. Not exactly clear on what strategies are going to come out to play, other than maybe Blixton solo at the back.
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to have a huge send towards the end of the race, but do they have the capacity to do that? They did earlier, as you said, with the 3 cars, now it's 2, might be a little bit harder. This is a couple of cars that have dropped off the lead pack. They're unfortunately a bit too far behind to do too much. A driver we've seen quite a lot on the screens today, Philip Broberg, there currently in the P11 and the 117 machine, but off that top 10 of that leading pack, certainly going to be a little bit more difficult for them as we come to 20 laps to go. 105 laps done of this race, first round of the season. Who's going to be the first race winner? Of course, the race wins are going to be coming at you thick and fast over the course of the season from now until May, when we get to Homestead, and of course the final of the playoffs races every 2 weeks between now and then. Most of them, of course, on ovals, which of course are going to be loads of action, loads of stages coming your way between now and the end of the season.
It is, as I said at the beginning of our show today, it's a long road for us and for the drivers to make it to the playoffs, 15 rounds, and then of course you've got the playoffs as well. I believe two separate rounds of 2 races to get yourself into the championship race, the 5th race in the playoffs, the finale of our season. And now this is where things will get interesting. We've got lap cars up ahead. They're getting lapped. They're in absolutely no obligation at all. Oh, he's been put into the wall.
Yeah, the 8 was riding on the wall there. The 24 potentially making some contact. Oh, almost more contact with the 35. This is going to get messy down the back straight. We've got the leading pack of cars coming through. We've got the slower pack of cars ahead, and they need to work out where they are in the train now. So as it stands, though, the 24 is leading the race so far, but unfortunately, he's lost some cars around him, and this is going to be a little bit more difficult. He's got the 58 a bit far behind. He's now on his own, trying to get through this traffic, and therefore we have to see exactly how this one is going to work out. He needs to wait for some friends coming up behind, and they can make a train to get through these lap traffic ahead.
But the drivers behind may not necessarily be friends. They might want to try and get ahead of the 24, but all of these cars in front are all getting lapped or already lapped, and this is what's difficult about this now, is this situation. The drivers in front are under no obligation whatsoever to let these drivers pass. They are racing, and they are still racing. They want to keep themselves on the lead lap. They want to be defending from the 24, from the 58, from the 35 as they make their way through. They don't want to go a lap down. They want to be able to come back around should we get a caution. And I think if we're going to get a caution in this race, now is going to be the time where it's going to happen. You've got a lot of cars all on very different strategies at very different points in their races, all defending from one another. They're 3 wide down the front stretch.
And this has actually worked out a little bit bad for the 24. So the 1112 is actually a teammate of the 24. They do wreck in the background. Do they save it, or are we going to be going caution? I think they save it. No, they don't. The 58, unfortunately, from second place is dropping round. There's the 95 is involved, leading the race
and the 12
and
the 13.
Also, yes, so many of the top drivers getting involved as we go. Caution, 17 to go. A lot to unpick in that one. There was sort of a crash. They kind of saved it, but unfortunately, more drivers coming in behind, getting involved. And the 58 had a hugely bent wheel there. This potentially is good for the likes of the 71 and the 49 who pit earlier.
Look at them on the back of your screen. You're going to have a lot of drivers having to pit here for damage purposes, and they've just caught up to this pack. And now you're in a very awkward situation. They caught it initially, but here, the 58 comes back up the racetrack into the 54. If I'm going to put that on anyone, I have to say the 58 shouldn't have come back up the racetrack. You have to stay on the apron at that point. You can't come back up when there's a car there. That's just how it is. And yeah, that's what caused the wreck. And then obviously, you're going at high speed in the narrow part of the circuit. You've got nowhere to go. No one's avoiding this.
Yeah, definitely. The first part was, I think, potentially on the... I couldn't quite see who the car was. The 112 getting turned down the road. Then, unfortunately, it was the 58. The second, just coming straight up the track. The 11 really had absolutely zero time to react from that one, as it's going to be about sort of 14 laps, 15 laps to the end of the race. Is anyone... of course, we don't need fuel to the end, but does anyone want fresh tyres? Are we not at that stage yet, potentially thinking about that? Because like what we saw on the first caution earlier, if everyone comes in at the same time, then it doesn't matter. But if you get half the grid to stay out, then that is when it becomes a big strategic decision. As we are seeing some cars come to the left, is anyone going to want those fresh tyres, or even maybe just a top up? No, looks like everyone is going to stay out, at least through the top cars.
I think pit road is closed.
Ah, yes. Actually, yes, it might still be.
I think it might still be closed there. See the red lights in the background. Have we already gone a lap whilst we're looking at the replays? No, the lights in the pace car seem to have stayed on, and now some drivers are having to come down to the pits because of the damage that they received. So we are going to have at least 2 more laps of pacing, and so I think we're going to have to wait for the pace line to file up, and then drivers can make their pit stop if they want. I want to know where the 71 is. That's what I'm really interested in. Where is the 71 and that group of, I think it was 2 cars, the 71. I can't remember what the other car was. Is that
79? I think it was.
Is that
still
them in 5th?
No, I don't think it's that car in 5th place. It might. Trying to see. No, I think that's his teammate. I think that's an 8 on the roof. Yeah, it's a 28 potentially. As being the 24 there, go just below the apron. Yeah, in the background there. So that's about 10th place, maybe something along the lines of that is 71, 49 just ahead, I believe, as well. So they've caught right back up, and this has worked out pretty decently from them. They were sort of fighting in the top 10 in that opening stage, so it's taken a long time, but they finally got back through as everyone's sort of rearranging themselves actually into order. So you are correct, actually. Yeah, pit road must have been closed that time around. So is there going to be anyone diving in for some fresh tyres, or are they want track position? I would assume track position at this stage, but you never know, because if there's more cautions, it then might actually help you later on. But banking on the cautions is also a risky strategy.
But now you've got the whole field brought back together again, and it's crunch time in this race. We're going to be getting back to green with 12, 13 laps to go. And it's going to be dicey out there, that's for sure. I think I saw the green lights on the pit entry, so there's a possibility that people might want to come down to the pits, but nobody from this lead pack wants to give up their track position. And yeah, I agree with them.
Yeah, I think if like the first 5-6 cars came in potentially, but yeah, obviously that was a bit of a long shout. But I would definitely expect someone potentially to try it. But yeah, counting as 11th and 12th place for the 49 and the 71 is actually maybe not, because it looks like they are choosing their lanes and coming around to get themselves for a restart. And it's going to be a frantic restart, 13 laps to go. Everyone has fuel and tyres to the end. We do have a couple of cars with slightly fresher tyres in the likes of the 49 and the 71, but it is pretty much even Stevens, and it is all to play for with just the final 13 laps staying.
We'll get going green with the 13 laps on the tower, and I'm going to be putting my full focus on those drivers in 11th and 12th. You said the 71 and the 49. They have fresher tyres. They're not fresh tyres, bearing in mind, but they are fresher. They're about 10 laps old, I believe. That's a good solid 5-6 laps younger than a lot of the other drivers around them. And they've been working the draft really well. And we've seen earlier on in the race as well, they were doing pretty good as well when they had a big pack of cars around them in the first stage when everyone was up close together again. So as we make our way through 3 and 4 now, it's going to be a frantic run to the finish in this race. The first race of the season. Everybody wants to start off the season with a win. I think they are in a very good spot with where they are.
Yes, certainly a strategic game in this series. The Bohlin's Swedish e-racing league has gotten underway tonight for the Hårlinjen Timrå 500 at the Daytona International Speedway. Just 13 laps remain under the floodlights to find out who is going to be winning. The 24 will lead the way across the stripe, which is potentially going to be the final restart. Are there going to be more cautions? We are soon to find out. As the 24 accelerates away, gets a good jump, gets a car length. Side by side we go across the line. We're back into 2x2 formation. Let's see how this one goes. Looks like the inside line there's had a much better run, as we're already getting a move down the inside. The 24's dropping back there as the 79 comes up the inside with the 30, the 35, the 29 all coming past as the 24 goes up to the top line, tries to come back. It's actually getting caught in the middle here. We're getting the 292 come around the outside of him. The 24's had a horrible start there from the front row as they all come in trying to get back into a 2x2 formation. Wreck though, coming in towards turn 3, the 292, the 8 make contact, loads of cars involved, and unfortunately that is going to be another caution coming out.
And I think it's robbed us as well of a little bit of strategy with the 71, the 49. I think they both got hooked up in that incident. I think they've both got some hefty damage. The 117s managed to beach themselves, but another wreck, another lot of cars down into the pit road. You can see there, absolutely, the 49 are heading down into the pits as well. Cars all over the racetrack, and we go around again, and I feel like we might be seeing a lot more of this before the end of this one.
Cautions breed cautions, as the famous saying goes. Let's see how this happened. Already cars are spinning around there. So here we go, a little bit further back, coming down the back straight. Let's see where the contact is going to be made. We're a little bit further up with the 8 just coming down. It's going to be a 3-wide situation. Also with, I think that's a 69 up on the banking. And unfortunately, I think there might just been the tiniest bit of contact between the two, just sending the 8 up. And unfortunately, when you spin at the front of the pack, everyone comes in behind you. And also on just after a restart as well, everyone is so close together. Let's see what happens with the 11.
Are we going to see some fantastic avoidance here? Are we going to see some fantastic avoidance? A little bit of contact from behind? No, we're not.
Almost.
That's very minimal damage. Oh, never mind. That's okay. That happened.
The front suspension's completely toast on the the 64 machine.
Yeah,
that was absolutely toasted. Let's see from the back of Olsen. He's going to get, I think it's a number 8. It is, yeah. The number 8's just going to go up the inside, but there's a car on the inside of him as well there, which I think was that 64 machine that we saw, and unfortunately just getting turned, sent up into the barrier, and yeah, carnage in behind. Look at all the cars getting involved.
I think that the number 232 here of Olsen doesn't have a whole lot of damage. He didn't hit the wall. He didn't hit anything else particularly hard. No one slammed into the back of him that hard. I don't think his race car is in too bad of a shape. He didn't pit for damage. He's still out there in 6th.
Well, I guess he's hoping, because if he pits, he's definitely out of the running for the race. So trying to hold on to that one. 5th place is that 24, and Dane, he had such a horrific start, just got absolutely freight trained coming down the back straight.
Yeah, it really didn't have anything to say on that restart. And it's weird because initially got a good launch and then just did not play the drafting strategy correctly. And the drivers behind him managed to find lines around him, left, right, and center, and yeah, just dropping back through the field. We'll definitely be hoping for a better start. Starting at the front of a restart is really difficult because you're not worrying about going forwards, you're worrying about not going backwards, and you're not only trying not to drive into the cars next to you, but you're definitely paying attention with what's happening behind you, even more so than what's in front of you. So it can be very difficult to actually keep in mind where everybody is, who's faster than you. Should I go left? Should I go right? Should I stay where I am? Am I going to build up some speed? Are they building up more speed than me? There's a lot that's going on in your head. And yeah, it can be quite difficult. But yeah, unfortunately, just made a couple of bad decisions there, the 24, and ends up now in 5th. But still, not a bad place to be, and doesn't have damage, which is a crucial thing. I think a lot of the cars further back, they'll have some knocks here and there. I can see a couple drivers up in front got some bent bumpers. Having a clean car at this stage in the race is very helpful.
Yeah, it certainly is. You don't want any damage to have any top speed impairment as well. You need every last bit that you can coming to the line as the drivers separate themselves out. So we're going to go back green racing. It'll be 9 laps to the finish. Are we going to stay green to the end? We unfortunately went caution on the restart lap last time, but it looks like, Dane, everyone's starting to get a bit frantic, starting to realise the end of the race is coming.
The end is very near. We'll get going green once again very shortly with 9 laps left to go. And if we get a caution with 3 laps or fewer to go, we'll get a green, white, checkered finish. We can have up to 3 of those as well, and with the way that the drivers have been driving so far since we've got everyone bunched back up again, I don't think it will be anyone's surprise if we make use of at least a couple of those, as everyone trying to make their way up towards the front. But those lights on the pace truck are well and truly out as we prepare to get going green once again. Cam, the drivers that we're seeing up at the front, we haven't seen up at the front yet at all in this race. Who are we looking at to see? Who do you think is going to make their way up towards the front? You got the 95 from there, who we've seen be quick, but no friends.
Yeah, I think the point is your friends. The 95 does have the 13 there, fourth car back on the lower line, so maybe they could work themselves to get on the same line. That might work. I've got a couple of teammates there, the 8 and the 37. So yeah, definitely and also actually the 78 as teammate there. So that actually might be a bit good for them. Definitely a difficult one though. This is at a point in the race where you need some friends around you, or you've just got to go for absolutely every move. And yeah, definitely not the easiest one, but we are going to be coming towards the line. We are going to be getting the restart. The 79 of Dan Holmer is going to be taking the restart with 9 to go here for the first race of the season. We saw this work or not work last time for the 24 on the previous restart. And what is going to happen this time around? The two lines continue. Drivers already moving up and down the lanes, trying to get themselves in with a bit of a draft, in with a bit of a slipstream as the top line gets a bit of a run around the outside. That's slowly working its way down as you come towards this back straightaway. And of course, we're going to be continuing this race to the end. A bit of contact there, maybe a bit of bump drafting between the two lines as they try and work their way up towards the front.
Don't push the pusher, and someone's pushing the pusher, and they're all going to pay the price for it if it carries on. I think someone, maybe third or fourth back in line on the inside, has just decided they were going to push a car that was pushing someone else, and that is a very quick one-way ticket to Wall City, as I like to call it. And yeah, a lot of drivers seeing that and backing off on the outside as we almost go 3 abreast. As it's like Solo there, popping up to the outside line, going to get joined by Araldson, and now everybody picking their lanes, and now you have to commit because there's not a lot of time left in this race. If we don't go cautionless, if we go cautionless, then this is, you're making your friends now for the rest of this race. And down the super stretch they go. Another driver heads to the outside lane. I think that's Ericsson.
Yeah, this is starting to get frantic time. Yeah, looks like the 37 there on the outside, just trying to slow down potentially the outside line. He's got two mates there. What he's going to want to do potentially is slow them down and get his teammates to go up ahead of him, and then they can push towards the front. Now, there's a good block on that previous lap as well from the 24 to stop the drivers, of course, coming in behind. It looks like as well, we do have the 71 of Brostrom, who of course was involved in that damage earlier. He's got himself up there. He's fifth in line on that inside lane. Definitely the opportunity for some of these drivers. Got the number 1 there, Gunnarsson. He was involved in that first caution, just showing you getting to the end of the race is so important.
Absolutely, and look at now, Ericsson out in front of this race, and the top line, they've got 3, 4, 5 cars up in front of the inside line. They now make themselves too wide and take control of the bottom. The 37 takes the lead of this race, the 24 dropping in behind, and now it's Solo's turn on the outside lane at the front, getting pushed by the teammates. The teammates are together, and that is a very scary sight for everybody else in this race. You can see there, Solo and Blix now making moves on the outside, and they're going to take the lead.
And it's also teammates on the inside as well. Maybe slightly different liveries, but the 24 does have his teammate just ahead of him with Ericsson in the 37. But on the outside, it's going to be all Contec cars trying to work their way ahead and move down, but they haven't been able to do so, at least through turn 2. 6 laps remaining of the first race of the season, and here is going to be all gloves off, and every move is there to be taken. The 24 pushing as it actually drops to the inside. The 95 thought about it, but maybe wasn't quite enough space to get both cars as they continue their way through, pushing each other towards the front. The 292, of course, involved in that previous restart and the previous caution, but he's still there.
Still leading on the outside. They have got the gap to the bottom. They could drop down now if they wanted to, but they know that that outside lane would be led by Olsen, and he has been quick behind them so far in this race. Olsen now looking to the middle, looking back up again, and here come the 13 and the 95. They've done that to perfection. They lost some speeds from Olsen, and they went down to the bottom immediately. The outside lane slowing down a bit. The inside lane is going to push them all the way up to the front. There's 6, 7 cars now ahead in the inside lane.
The 13 and the 95 have worked together so well this race. Even on that final restart, they were separated, but they've got themselves back together and have done that amazingly to get to the front of the race. It's going to be 4 laps to go as they come across the stripe. We are still remaining 2 lanes fighting it out for this first race. They go back to the top though. They're trying to slow down the run, but that's given the opportunity for the 37 to try and pull away again. They're really trying to control this at the front.
Inside lane did get a little bit of a speed boost. The 24 and the 37 working together fantastically. Now they have the speed. Look at this on the inside of 1 and 2. They come down onto the super stretch, but now this is where the guys on the outside come down the hill off the banking and they gain some speed. But these two up in front are controlling this race fantastically. They know when the drivers behind have a run in the opposite lane and they cut them off perfectly. They've done it 3 times now. If they can keep doing it for a couple more laps, then they'll have a first and second on their hands. But I think it's only a matter of time before we start getting 3 lanes as we go 3 laps to go.
Oh, it's actually working out really well for the outside lane as it stands. Are they going to move down, though? They're going to continue to work on the outside lane. They've got 3-4 cars past, actually, the 37 leading that inside line. Surely at some point they need to move down to block them off. But actually, potentially, if it's working, why change? And they are continuing. No, they do start slightly coming to the left. They're thinking about it, but not enough as it is stands. 2.5 laps remain of this Daytona race. It's certainly getting right to the end now as the 95 push drafting is the 292 now drops down to the bottom. He's trying to make a run for the front.
Austin been very racy the whole third stage long, and what I'm looking at now is Solo and Blix. They're trying to get as much air onto the bumper of the 79 of Homer as they can, and it's working so far. 2 laps to go at this point. It is so nearly the end of this race, and they are doing such a fantastic job of keeping this together. And the inside lane, it's nowhere. Everyone in the outside lane comes past them now. 7 cars on the outside. Your top 7 drivers. Olsen down to 9th now. Surely some drivers need to drop down, and they have. We've got the, trying to see a couple of the cars. 12 it might be, just dropping down, trying to get himself into that low lane. Got the 83 now. The 39 follows him to try and make a run for it. We don't want to see, or they don't want to see, the Alcantech guys just running it out to the front. But coming to 1 lap to go. The Hårlinjen in Timrå 500 has just 2.5 miles to go. First round of the season. The Bohlin's Swedish e-racing league has given us so much action so far, but who is going to win this final race? The 13 and the 95 working together nicely, but the 83 gets a run on the inside. Inside lane has a lot more cars for the time being, but they're starting to drop back ever so slightly through 1 and 2, and now the drivers on the outside have the advantage. Surely they're not going to be able to do this, but look at the run on the outside for the 79 going for the inside. The 13 blocks him off 3 wide into turn 3 as the 79 managed to get through. That block did not work for the 13. He's going to be dropping back. He's lost his teammate as well of the 95 as the 28 also gets a push from the 83 up towards the line 3 wide. It's going to be there wrecking in the background, but we're going to stay to the line as the 95 gets a huge run. The 28 does not. They continue to wreck, but it's going to be the 95 across the line to take the first race victory of the season for the Hårlinjen in Timrå 500. And after controlling it well is Eric Blitz who wins that race. That was a difficult, hard-fought final lap. Almost lost it in turn 3, but managed to hold on out of turn 4. It had to be one of the Alcantech cars, and they ran that race from start to finish to perfection. They had the 4 cars up there at the beginning of stage 1. They controlled everything up until the caution. They gave up track position for a better race strategy, and it has paid off dividends time and again. You can see the 13 of Solo coming to congratulate as well. Those two did a stellar job in the dying stages of that race and fully deserved race victory. Awesome stuff to see. Let's get a replay of this, though. It's looking quite neat and tidy for the time being, but what unfortunately happened for the 95 and the 13 initially was that they pulled away too much, actually. So the 79 got such a huge run on them down the back straight there, and that might have actually been the 79 working that well to his advantage, maybe with a bit of throttle control, who knows. But the run that he got, Dane, you see, is about 3-4 car lengths back, and that gives him a huge slipstream draft down the back straight. Absolutely massive, and you see now this is where I thought the 79 might have played a MasterCard. Goes down to the bottom, sees the 13 coming back up, and bang, into the middle. The margins were absolutely minuscule, but the 95 here gets such a fantastic run. Gets the side draft, the 28 gets a little bit of a bump there, and now here the 95 on the outside gets the side draft off the car in the middle and just picks up so much speed. They wreck further back. There's a little bit of contact for second and third as well. Everybody ends up in the wall, but the 95 just with the side draft just gets so much speed on the outside.
Yeah, just the tiniest bump for the 79 as well. Unfortunately, sending some cars into the wall. Crazy way to finish the first round of the season, and that was a very, very eventful race. Let's get the results for you after 125 laps. The Hårlinjen i Timrå 500 is complete. We got the 95 there, Eric Blitz leading the way by just a tenth of a second in the end to Dan Holmer in second place. Hogman gets third with Solo in fourth place. Unfortunately, couldn't quite get the lead that he had for so long during this race. Soglund there in fifth place with the two Ericssons in sixth and seventh place. Aronson is in eighth place after also leading for quite a while in that 24 machine before we get Jonas Fors there in the number 78 machine in ninth place. Zacherson rounds out your top 10 just over a second behind. Linus Brunstrom tried something with the strategy, ends up in P11 with Lindhoff in P12. Bohlin is in 13th with Olsen in 14th place. Your reigning champion, Jonas Gunnarsson, is in 15th. Brookberg, who we saw quite a lot on the cameras today on Zoom, is in 16th place. Erling in 17th. Fredriksson is in 18th. Havlidarsen and Schott round out your top 20. The first of the couple of drivers being one lap down today. The one lap drivers continue with Brogman and Orman for 22nd and 23rd place. Fargrow is in 24th, Bjork in 25th, and Sherp, your final driver, on the lead lap in 26th place. Jonasson is 2 laps down in 27th, Lundberg in 28th, Bradberg and Selander is your top 30 for today. And of course, a few more drivers on the final page. Pretty decent showing, actually. Out in this race is his Helmbro there. He was up towards the front at the beginning part, but unfortunately got involved in one of those wrecks. 4 laps down in the end. Brostrom 7 laps down in 32nd. Tier 9 laps down in 33rd. Carlin 10 laps down 34th place. And your final 3 drivers are Strumberg, Nyholm and Gantz, who unfortunately, the number 38 was also 38 laps down. And that was your Hårlinjen i Timrå 500 and your first race of the season. And Dane, certainly a very eventful way to start the season, especially the sort of final 30 laps or so really gave us some good action.
Yeah, that was brilliant. And it did get a little bit single file in the middle, but that is to be expected. And we had a couple of those incidents that could have maybe brought out cautions, but didn't. And it didn't bunch up the field. Instead, it spread it out. But throughout the race, we had some fantastic racing. The strategy so nearly paid off for a couple of drivers who took the risks. It's going to be a very good season of racing. The drivers are all very clean and respectful. It's fantastic to see. And honestly, I can't wait. Bring me Kansas in 2 weeks' time. I am so hyped for it.
Yeah, for sure. Kansas is in 2 weeks' time on the 14th of September. We are going to try and jump in to some interviews. So give us 1 second and then we'll be there with your race winner, Eric Blitz. And Eric, of course, having a very solid race today, having to work very hard for it in the end, almost getting the 79 coming past you, but certainly a great result for you. How just was that race for you today?
I mean, it was pretty much everything, I guess. Started out with an amazing qualifying, somehow getting all 3 cars on the same thousandth of a second. And then, yeah, we just kept a steady pace in the start, tried to get on a strategy. It looked very nice until we got that second to last caution. Then we got kind of worried that we were going to have to battle it out.
And you worked so well with your teammates there. How just did that work for you? I mean, obviously you're in constant communication with the 13, but you really seem to be stuck together like glue throughout the whole race. Is that very difficult to do so, or does that just come with a lot of experience, how you can find yourself, especially on that final restart? You started in different lanes, but you ended up being right next to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you just need to give up a position sometime to get in a good position for the long run. Danny is a lot better than me on pushing, so just figured out, yeah, you get to push. You're better at it. He has more experience with it. And then we just try to keep the nose clear. We got a few bangs there in the end, but yeah, just working together and try to stay out of trouble. And try to work with other cars as well. It's kind of hard sometimes because they seem to get upset that me and Danny work together, even though we were helping the pack, but it is what it is, and it worked out in the end.
Yeah, certainly a difficult one. And what are your goals for this season? Of course, I assume you're aiming for the championship, but how realistic do you think that is? Do you think you can have a very consistent run for the championship?
I mean, consistency is usually my strong point. The chase part is where the Achilles heel is. I got, I think, 3 championships up to now until we got a chase format. But of course, our championship win is always possible in the beginning of a season. We just have to work with it and see how we end up in the end.
Yeah, so thanks for coming to talk to us, and we'll congratulate you for this race and potentially speak to you next time out in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, good luck for Kansas.
Yeah, thanks.
Now we'll bring in Dan Holmer for the number 79 machine, getting second place in the end there. And Daniel, you had almost the run up the inside into turn 3. You were so close to making it, but unfortunately just didn't quite have the momentum to get the race victory today.
No. I think Eric side-drafted me, so I did lose speed. But overall, starting dead last, I'm happy with the second. Yeah.
Yeah, you did a great race. So how did you find the strategy today, working your way up the pack through the cautions and through some overtakes? It must have been very sort of difficult with loads of different moving parts in the strategy.
Yeah, for the first, maybe 100 laps was maybe just to stay alive. Yeah, trying to make my way up to the pack. Pretty much stay alive because it's Daytona. Everything can happen at Daytona.
And I'll ask you as well, what's your sort of aspirations and your goals for this season? Of course, we've got 15 races for you to try and get into the playoffs. Do you think that is an opportunity for you to get into that top 15?
Yeah, I hope so. My final result is finish in the overall top 3. So now when we in Bright Esports has Linus with us, I think Bright and me and Linus can go pretty far.
Yeah, well, we wish you luck for this season. Thanks for speaking to us, and congratulations.
Thank you.
And lastly, we'll bring in third place driver Marcus Hagman here, and certainly a very hectic final restart there, managing to finally get third place. But you were up towards the front for quite a long time that race. How was that one for you, Marcus?
Well, actually, I wasn't that far up. I was around top 15. It started with I missed the grid, so I started from the pits and came one lap down, which was not optimal. And then we had some trouble with the first restart. The guy ahead of me didn't go, and we lost the draft. So we were like 4 cars alone in the back, like 20 seconds or so behind. But at the end, I managed a P3, which actually surprised me a lot. But I'll take it any day in the week.
Absolutely. And do you think that you can really sort of take the momentum from this race? Of course, as you say, coming from a long way back, the strategy seems to be working really well. Do you think that's something that you can sort of put forward to make a really consistent charge up towards the top of the championship?
I truly hope so. I mean, as long as I don't start from the pits every race, I should be fine. But yeah, I know I have the speed, and I know we have the teamwork to do it. So I don't see why we would not be up top with all the drivers actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations for your third place today, and hopefully
thank you very much.
Again later this season.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Marby Rental Cars. That's our only economical sponsor, and then we have Kappa Bar like support. So I would like to thank those two and all the team.
Yeah, of course, great to have plenty of sponsors, not only for the league but also the teams as well this season. So that pretty much concludes this first round of the Bohlin's Swedish e-racing league. It's been an eventful start to the season, but we have plenty more races to go. Kansas is next week in a couple of weeks' time, 14th of September, before we go all the way down to Talladega, the end of the regular season on 29th of February. And then the 9th of May, we will crown the champion in Homestead for round 20 of the season. It's been myself, Cameron Roger. Dane Baird has been alongside me with Josh Lee doing the production behind the scenes of this RaceSpotTV broadcast. And until Kansas in a couple of weeks' time, we wish you a very warm goodbye.
Fast forward to the siren in the distance, getting closer by the minute. Will you stand and answer to the call? Run like a fire, willful and wild. This is a night that you were made for. Don't close your eyes, safer to stare into the sun than to turn away from what you could become. This was once a perfect symphony, soft and steady like a heartbeat. But these notes turn dissonant and sour, getting
Behöver du en bil? Mabe hyrbilar finns på över 150 platser i landet och vi har nästan lika många modeller att välja på. Mabe hyrbilar. Hyrbilar som passar dig.
Hos Bright Esports i Västerås kan du testa på både NASCAR och olika formulabilar, precis som Svenska Eracingligan's deltagare. Gå in på brightesports.com och boka just din tid.